Katarina, that is a hell of a way to spell the last name Szulc.
I didn't fucking choose it. Like,
has anyone ever spelled that right in your life?
like not in North America.
See, that's where we are. That's the problem.
Okay, well, you know what? Sometimes we have to adapt.
Where do they spell it right?
In
Fucking
Poland.
Bangladesh?
No, Bangladesh. What the? Yeah, I feel like that's exactly where I belong, right?
No, you belong right where you are. You're doing some crazy and it's highly interesting to me. So thank you for coming in here from California, like last minute notice too.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. And shout out to our mutual friend Jorge Ventura for making this possible. When Jorge is given like a huge compliment about someone's reporting on the ground, I know it's got to be pretty good.
I appreciate that. A lot of journalists have been really good about supporting Cartel Girl.
Yeah. You thought I just had that mug out there.
I did. I was like, I can't believe you ordered that so quick. Like, I just got here. What was that, like Amazon overnight? Holy
No, I've just been since episode 1. I just write something on the mug right before we start, whatever comes to mind. That one felt like it hit pretty good, though.
It's so good. I was about to order one.
Yeah, you know what? Well, maybe we'll stick that on our mug sales online. That's when the next one's up. We have like a couple of them for sale.
I think this will be your best seller.
It might be. It's not hard. I think we sold 4 of the other 2. So just get a few family members to buy it. You're number
Perfect.
1. But you are only 23 years old.
Yes, sir.
And you've been living down in Mexico for basically like the last 2 years or so.
Mm-hmm.
What the hell is wrong with you?
I don't think it's what's wrong with me. I think it's like it's something good, but it's I get it a lot. You have big balls, whatever.
You do.
But I love the action and I love telling these kinds of stories. Like from the beginning of my career, from the beginning that I wanted to become a journalist, I knew that I wanted to do hard-hitting stories. Like I knew my beat wouldn't be simple. And obviously like I started out with sort of like the daily breaking news beat. It was great. I was with CBC.
In Canada.
Yeah, the national broadcaster. And that was like my dream job at the start of my career because I was like, okay, I want to become the best journalist I could possibly be. But all of my favorite journalists, first of all, they were all like women except Anthony Bourdain, but Anthony Bourdain never considered himself a journalist.
Yeah.
But like
he was though. He was great.
Also just one of the best people ever.
Yes.
So and actually like one of his episodes when he went on Parts Unknown to Mexico City, he sat down with Annabelle Hernandez, who is like and was she is the biggest like cartel organized crime reporter. She now lives in California in exile because of, you know, the danger that she has incurred over the years of her career. But that was like very formative for me. And I was like, you know what? Spanish is easy. I'm going to learn how to speak Spanish. So
you didn't speak any Spanish?
No, I'm not Latina or Hispanic. Yeah.
So you just learned it a couple years ago.
I downloaded it on Duolingo when I was 12.
My God.
Yeah, and I just did it every single day.
Oh, when you were 12?
Yeah.
Wait, you were thinking about covering the cartels when you were 12?
Well, that's when the Parts Unknown episode came out. Now, like maybe
did things go wrong in your childhood?
Okay, it's not that they went wrong. They were just like formative experiences.
Okay. Right,
like it depends how you look at it, right? But I always liked the action. I always liked the storytelling. And I used to get into a lot of trouble as a kid because people would be like, oh, like, Katarina, like, why are you opening? Like, you got a big mouth, like, what, blah, blah, blah. But that's been, like, my greatest asset now because I just talk to anyone about anything and I don't judge anyone. Like, tell me literally the worst thing you've done, the best thing you've done, and I don't care. Like, it's just, like, open arms. Like, just lay it on me. I don't care. But I'm super curious. So like, I knew that was what I wanted to do, but I knew that I would have to go international and I wanted to go international and I love Mexico and I love Mexican people because like I tell people this all the time, I'm a very resilient person and hardworking and Mexican people are very resilient people. So like, of course I wanted to live and work in an environment where I identified with the people living there. It's just unfortunate that they go through a lot of I mean, of course, it keeps me employed, but they go through a lot of never ending.
And there would always be a story somewhere else too. You want to see some sort of like happy ending to things like this. And again, to be cynical as you are similar to me in that respect, I guess in that way, it's like, how long has this been going on? You know,
like
forever.
Literally
Yeah.
since like the beginning of time.
Yeah, and they're so it's very hard for us to grasp in America, you know, where we have all our own problems and our own government and stuff, but like there's an order to business. Like you
Yeah.
know who's f***ing around when someone's f***ing around.
For the most part.
For the most part, right? Just for the law of averages here, let's say we understand it.
Mm-hmm.
Down there, it's like those guys run the governments. They pay them off.
Well, I always say this, that like the Mexican government is the biggest functioning cartel in Mexico.
I think that's a good take.
And like being in Sinaloa, it was so fucking obvious because like the governor of Sinaloa, Rocha Moya, he doesn't have really any support right now from Sinaloan people. And he's part of the Morena party. And who just got voted in? Claudia Sheinbaum. And she's now the president of Mexico with the
Right.
Morena party. Her predecessor, Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador, also Morena. And, you know, it was found out that he took around $2 million in payments from the Sinaloa cartel. Now Rocha Moya is like the governor of Sinaloa. He's with the Morena party. Like everything is connected and everyone feeds everyone. And like it's really hard to trust anyone too, whether it's like your own government, law enforcement. Yeah, you don't know who bad guys are at any point in time. And sometimes that's me. Like despite the whole like cartel girl, big balls.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm like, okay, if I find myself in a bad situation, which I have before, like who do I call? What do I do? Like there has been like 2 moments in my life where I've texted my dad at like a really time of night or something and be like, if I don't text you or call you by certain time, call the Canadian embassy. Yeah, and I tweeted that one time and people were like, don't get Canada involved. I'm like, it's because I'm Canadian. I'm not trying to like call in the troops. Like
Canada's like Mexico.
Yeah, no, like I'm focused on my security. Like I'm also a still person, okay?
What do your parents think of what you do?
Okay, my mom is dead, but my dad, he loves it, I think. I think he's scared inside, but we don't really talk about his fears. But we have a deal where like I've told him, first of all, he has a number that I've given to him for a certain like special forces person in Mexico, where I'm like, if something happens to me or if I like disappear, if you don't see me active on WhatsApp for like 3 days straight, then call this number or text it.
It's not Dale Comstock, is it? No, that's our guy.
Okay, sorry. And like message this number and just be like, I'm Katarina's dad, like something's wrong and we'll figure it out. And I know he doesn't like to think of it, but he knows that I've always done this. And I've told him like, if I die or if something happens to me, you cannot feel guilty. Like just know that I died doing what I love, which sounds so dramatic when I say it out loud, especially when I say it in English. I've never told anyone that in English. That sounds really dramatic. But I don't want him to feel guilty because it's like I would not do anything else.
How many siblings do you have?
I have 3.
All right, so he's got a few left over if you're gone.
He can move on. Yeah, he can move on. It's fine.
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine he's got to be proud because it's in all seriousness, like we joke about it, but it's incredibly brave and it's important work too because a lot of people don't like. There's not a ton of people who are doing it. I know like. I had been trying, and Alessi knows about this, for so long to find like my own cartel guys to bring in here as far as like people reporting on it. And the only people are either fully Americanized and here all the time and never really there, or they're fully Mexican and don't speak a lick of English, which, you know, doesn't help me for this. And it's amazing reporting. And it's like, it's because the repercussions for doing this job and maybe stepping on the wrong toes are exactly what everyone else out there is thinking right now. You know, it's like these guys don't give a fuck.
They don't give a fuck. Like, I have seen such a disregard for human life. It's next level. Like, and like you asked me, like, you know, how does your dad feel, whatever. Like, he understands the level of it because also, like, when I was a kid and I'm like, this is what I'm going to do. He was the first person to pull up and be like, okay, watch this guy get his head chopped off. How do you feel now? Yeah. We used to... Like family, no, I can't say this, but I guess like one time my dad was like, okay, you want to do this crazy. There's like this website. It's called Run the Gauntlet. And yeah, you know it.
You know what that is, Alessi?
Yeah. It's for sociopaths. It's crazy. And
What's on it?
You basically like go through different levels of watching extremely violent acts. Like, but real life, like it's the dark web.
Oh, I was gonna say this is the dark web.
Yes, it's the dark web.
Why do you know about this, Alessi?
Dude,
It's our generation.
Hey, wait a minute.
that was in middle school. One of the things was they say run the gauntlet because it's like how much can you take? That's essentially what it is because it starts very basic and then it goes to the most extreme things you can imagine.
Like murder and on camera. It's it's very bad.
No kidding.
But he would know because like it's kind of our like generation thing. But
I never heard that.
the thing is, it's like it's demented. Like you're not supposed to watch that. And we didn't do it in a way like in all seriousness. It wasn't like, oh my God, like look at this woman get stabbed 20 times by her boyfriend. It wasn't, oh my God, that's crazy. It was like my dad's like, okay, honestly, like, is this really what you want to do? Being realistic, like not discouraging me, it was completely like in a way like that you're going to see like this. Yeah. And in all truth, I have like on a daily basis, I'm in group chats on WhatsApp. I have certain people or depending where I'm at, and it's like dead bodies, heads chopped off, like women completely battered, kids.
Do you feel anything when you see it?
Not in the moment, but afterwards, yes. Like in the moment, I get into like work mode, and it's like, okay, someone's dead, and I don't know this person. I don't know exactly what happened. My job here is to be the messenger and find out as much as I can and tell the story as fairly as I can and talk to as many people as I can. But there are moments, depending on the case, because I've seen it so much, obviously, I undoubtedly get a level of, become desensitized, as anyone would. But there are certain cases, depending on the details or who it is. Like if it's a little girl or any kid, someone who's really vulnerable, yeah, it fucks me up. Like I don't really sleep.
January is all about fresh starts, and it's a great time to swap out the skincare products weighing your skin down in favor of a regimen scientifically proven to transform your skin at the cellular level, something today's sponsor OneSkin knows all about. OneSkin's products are powered by OS01, a proprietary peptide the four founders, who are all skin longevity scientists by the way, developed after testing 900 other peptides. And it's scientifically proven to switch off the aging, dysfunctional cells that cause lines, wrinkles, and thinning skin. Not only that, OneSkin products are packed with nourishing ingredients like Andiroba oil, Pro Bronco, and Moringa seed extract to naturally boost collagen, reduce inflammation, and protect skin from environmental stressors while being free of unnecessary irritants like sulfates and fragrance. Ready to detox your routine, improve your health, and look your best? Head on over to oneskin.co and use code Julian at checkout to get an exclusive 15% off your first order. Now, as you guys know, I make a living being on camera, so I gotta keep this face as nice as possible, which is why I personally like the OS01 face topical supplement. I use this in the mornings and at night, rub it on my skin on my face and a little bit on my neck, and essentially over time it does soften up my skin, and I notice that some of those like fine lines that are going to turn into wrinkles one day look a little bit softer and not as much in the eye, if you know what I mean. So make sure you get on board with my friends over at OneSkin. Head on over to oneskin.co to get 15% off with code Julian. Once again, that's oneskin.co to get 15% off using code Julian. After you purchase, OneSkin's going to ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show by telling them you heard it from Julian Dorey podcast. Now go on over and invest in the health and longevity of your skin with OneSkin. Your future self will thank you.
Yeah, you say desensitized, but you know, I've had guys in here talk about the hard drive in your mind, and you can't wipe it.
No, you don't.
It's there.
It doesn't reset. Yeah.
How old were you when your dad was showing you Run the Gauntlet?
Way too young. I don't even want to say because I feel like someone's going to be like, her dad turned her into a sociopath. Like, I've had people say that before, and it's like, no. He
Over,
just
under
wanted...
12?
Under. Okay. Oh, my God. My dad's going to watch this, too.
Wow. So you were into dark when you were young.
Oh, like, I was 7 years old when I watched Scarface.
I was like 9.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. All right.
Black Hawk Down.
Yeah, I was probably about 9 or 10.
Okay, so so what's the big difference? I guess that's fiction,
it's a
right?
Movie.
Yeah,
it's a movie. That's catch up. You know, I'm not seeing someone get hacked to death with a fuck.
And it wasn't.
And it's real.
Yeah, but it was very much like he knew that this is what I wanted to do. I knew that this is what I wanted to do, and so did like my teachers, and everyone I think this is why I was able to actually get into this line of work and dedicate myself to actually trying to be as good as I can possibly be at it, is because everyone was like, are you sure this is what you want? And I was ready to, I didn't step into this naive. Like, I wasn't like, whoa, like when I saw my first ever like murdered body, I wasn't like, holy, no, it was like, okay, like this is part of the job.
Yeah, there's also like a thing, and it's very real, and I'm sure you're aware of this, but like you look at, for example, the true crime genre,
Yeah.
it's like 85% women.
Yeah.
Like y'all are into that. What is that?
But there's a difference, okay? Because I've had people talk to me about this before, and for like that whole true crime and watching, like, there's a lot of people on YouTube who will like do a makeup tutorial as they're talking about like this gruesome murder, and it's sensationalizing it, right? And that's something that I never try to do. Like, I always stray away from.
You don't do makeup tutorials while you're talking about the cartel behind you?
Imagine if I did. Oh my God. Hey guys, so first of all, for my lip liner today, let's talk about the Sinaloa Cartel.
Oh my God. So you knew at 12 when you watched Bourdain do that interview that you wanted to be a journalist specifically covering this stuff.
100%.
And
yeah.
you never wavered on that.
No, I didn't. And it just kept growing. Like, I loved Clarissa Ward with CNN, still do. She's the chief foreign correspondent with them, and she goes and covers some really hard-hitting stories. And then Lydia Cacho, she's another really good Mexican journalist and like human rights activist. There were a lot of really significant women who just went all out and told like hard-hitting stories, organized crime, drug trade, etc. And I was like, okay, these stories matter, but of course, a lot of people are scared to tell them or tell them to the full extent. I'm willing to just put myself out there and tell it because I'm so curious. And when I hear people's stories, when I talk to the people that are like most impacted, I'm like, okay, this is worth it because these people deserve to have a voice or a platform to have their voice heard.
So you got your first job with CBC, you said?
No, I was with like this little private radio station in the world for my first job.
That's good. Builds character.
It did. Started smoking.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, that was really built character, you know.
Yeah, that's a different kind of character. Yeah, Leslie texted me, said, yeah, we had to stop for cigarettes. I was like, I was unaware you were a Marlboro man. He's like, no, not for me.
He was like, definitely not for me. Yeah, I know, disgusting. People are gonna hate on me for that, especially in America.
Yeah,
but
you got time to quit.
Anyways, so it was like a radio station. I was doing like little random stories, and then it was like COVID, so people would like in Canada, because this was in Vancouver.
So you're like 18, 19 at this job.
Yeah, I was really young because I didn't go to university. I just did like a
You
little.
just went right out.
Well, I graduated high school, did like a little journalism program, and then it was like, but I don't have.
Journalism
I did a 2-year hands-on broadcast program, but I don't have a degree. Like I didn't. So
I don't think the cartel guys are checking for your degree. I think that's
no,
fine.
actually, you'd be surprised. Like,
wait, they do?
I'm joking. Could we actually see your resume, Katarina? Yeah.
So you start at the little old radio station, and then you get to CBC.
And then I get to CBC, yeah. And I did a year at CBC, and like it was great, and it taught me a lot, especially like how to really dig deep and get quality journalism. But by the time that year was coming up, I was itching to get to this, to really like dive deep into that international organized crime beat. And so
what were you covering in CBC?
Like everything. But okay, so I was like a daily breaking news reporter. So it kind of just depended what was going on. But it kind of just happened that I ended up doing a lot of like child murders or child deaths. Yeah, because I could.
I'm not laughing at that.
I know, I understand. I have like similar visceral reactions like that that are like they look inappropriate. But anyways, there was like one case. So I was doing everything. There was whatever, this crazy car accident or like really like colored women in craft beer, women of color in craft beer, and taking over that. I couldn't do fluff stories like that. Like, I understand it that there's a group of people and a demographic that cares about that, but I always wanted to do like the crime beat. I wanted to do international
Murder.
Okay, no, not like not entirely murder. But then I started doing like a lot of kids stories that were really sad. And it was because I could just talk to the families. And I got it, you know, like my mom died when I was young, so I could just call someone up and be like, I can't even imagine what's going on. Can you just tell me something about it? You know, like, how do you want this person to be remembered at the very least? But there was like one case when it actually like really bothered me. There was this little 8-year-old girl, and she was staying with her stepmom while her dad was in jail, and her stepmom beat her so bad that she killed her. And I went to the apartment. So we didn't really do like crazy, like go to the scene of the crime and figure out what's going on.
Yeah.
But that was always in my nature. So I was like, one day I begged the producer, I'm like, just please send me with like a camera guy. Like, I just want to go to the apartment and see like what the fuck went on here. I want to talk to a neighbor. Like, did they know she was getting abused? What is going on? Because at this point I had spoken to her whole family, and her whole family was like, or certain family members, they were like, she was such a bright girl, but we didn't know this was going on. We lost contact with her for a few months. The stepmom like kept her away, and that started to piss me off because I was like, okay, if that was my kid or like my niece, I would have been like, I would have pulled up and where the fuck is the kid, right? Anyways, so we go to the apartment, and it's like everything is taped off, whatever, but investigation is seemingly done. And I'm trying to get into this apartment, but I can't. So I'm outside, and I'm smoking, and I'm like, oh, the fuck. And my camera guy's like, let's go. Like, he was like done his shift, and I'm like, I need to get in. And the groundskeeper, or like the main property manager, whatever, he walks out. And I'm like, hey, like, I heard there's a murder. He's like, no, like, no press. And as soon as he said that, I'm like, oh my God, you speak Polish. So I'm like, in Polish, I'm like, just walk inside. Like, I'm like, jak się masz? Like, you know, whatever. He's like,
you speak fluent Polish too.
It's so shit, but I can make it work. I can make it work.
Okay.
It's not like my Spanish or my English, but I'm like, listen, just do me a solid. Just walk into the building, and then I'm just going to walk right behind you. Just don't turn around. Like, act like you had no idea that someone followed you through that door. He's dobrze, like, good, done. Okay. We do it. He walks in, I go in, he goes into his office, I go upstairs, and I see like the door, you know, it's all like fingerprinted, there's tape around it, and I had heard a rumor that one of the neighbors heard the girl screaming when the mom was murdering her and went in because the stepmom and this neighbor allegedly did drugs together.
Oh boy.
And so this is allegedly, and like I have to say that because I also like reported on this officially. So allegedly he went in, and the little girl is like laying on the floor. There's a hole in the wall because allegedly the stepmom bashed her head so hard into the wall that the hole led into the other room.
Oh my God.
And you know what? This kid was like so cute. And I can't say her name, but like it's such a beautiful name. It's one of my best friend's name. Like it's the name that I would name my daughter if I had one. So when you
saw that.
Yeah, it was like I personalized it. Not that I had to in order to feel like how terrible this was, but it was a lot. And so I heard that the neighbor walked in and basically told the stepmother allegedly like, she's gonna die, like you can't catch a murder charge. And so then she apparently got a bike pump and shoved it down her throat and like started, and like that's how they knew that there was a murder in this apartment because there was blood splatter everywhere.
She put a bike pump down her throat?
Allegedly. Which would be like extremely heinous.
Yeah, that's not beating at that point. That's straight up like
torture.
That's
like cartel shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so when I got there, I'm like banging on this neighbor's door, like banging. And I knew that like my Polish buddy downstairs, he wasn't going to say shit to me. Like we were cool at that point. And I heard the TV and I'm like, I know, you know, so-and-so, like come and talk to me, like it, yeah, like probably not the most professional thing. But at this point I'm like, what the fuck happened? And why does nobody know? And like, how did nobody advocate for this kid? So TV like goes silent. No one comes out. different guy comes out of a different apartment from across the hall because he hears me banging. And he was like a little eccentric, to say the least. And he's just like, I know what happened. And I'm like, you don't know what happened. You're just coming out here. I'm like, but what did you hear? And he's like, no, I promise. Like, one time I saw her, the stepmother, walking out with the kids because she also had kids of her own. And the little girl was just like bruised and not in good shape. And it's not my job to tell someone, why the fuck didn't you do anything? But I would have liked to in that moment.
Oh, yeah.
So after that, and dealing with all that and going to the court, and there was this whole issue because the girl's dad is in jail. I think it was a murder charge too. Like, it was so chaotic. This girl was so alone. And that started to like really eat me up because I was like, oh my God, like I was here and existing and like in a same like radius of this area, and she was being tortured and murdered. And like, what, like, why couldn't we have crossed paths? And so I started to really internalize it. So then it's like, okay, you need to talk to a psychologist. And then the psychologist like, you need to take a step back. So I'm like, this is my time. I'm going to go to Mexico and start covering cartels. Let's.
That's what did it.
Yeah.
Psychologist tells you to take a chill pill. You're like, go to Mexico.
Yeah. So I went to Mexico and my dad was pissed. He's like, how are you going to quit like this amazing job and go and freelance in Mexico?
Do you think you were running from it a little bit?
100%. For sure.
So have you ever dealt with that? I mean, you're talking about it now, but like, have you ever like taken time to yourself and dealt with what you saw and what you can't unsee there?
Well, I talk about it all the time, and I still write about it, like, and I've published some stuff about it. But I just think that there are some things that are just too heavy for someone to deal with. And I know we live in this age, especially with TikTok, where it's like, go to therapy and deal with this and do your due diligence. And it's like, you know what? There's just some shit that you're never going to unsee. And that's never going to stop bothering you. And if that means like, okay, I will always remember this girl that I didn't know fondly and with a lot of love, so be it. Like, she suffered a lot more than I had to telling her story. So it is what it is. But going to Mexico, it was like, I started off kind of slow. And
you quit your job, right?
Yeah,
so you went on your own.
Yeah, I quit. And my dad was like, I told my dad, I was like, I need you to help me move to Mexico and freelance because I'm not going to have like a job and stuff like that. And then my dad was like, no, like this is your choice and I don't support it. So then I sold the Rolex that he got me for my high school graduation.
And your dad got your Rolex for high school graduation?
Yeah, it was like a big deal.
Nice, Dad.
Please don't rob me. I don't have it anymore. I actually don't have anything nice anymore. Like, I live in Mexico. So that was like great because then I got like a head start to be able to like go and freelance and not be making any money for a while, but still trying to find and tell stories that I thought mattered.
So day one, how do you start? First of all, where'd you go?
I went to Jalisco, I went to Guadalajara, but I was also going to like Puerto Vallarta.
Yeah.
Because, well, I like the beach. But
these are some hot spots.
They are some hot spots because of the Jalisco Nueva Generación Cartel.
Yes.
So I was trying to do a lot of those stories. And I was working on a story about how they were monopolizing the avocado farms in like smaller towns. And
how'd you get to that? So wait, from
Facebook.
Day one to that, how did you get to that story? Like avocado farms, cartels, everybody wins.
So this was always on my radar, right? Like even when I was working my day job, like I would go home and still be like always reading shit and still super invested in this because it still was like my passion.
Did you ever reach out to people?
Yeah.
Like through social, like on the ground?
Yeah, and like Facebook, and it's so not my generation, but Facebook is like, for my job, it's amazing because people are so way too open on Facebook, first of all, which is great. Yeah. But second of all, there's like a ton of groups and people are super active on it. And I tend to have pretty good luck with that. So I was like going into these Facebook groups about anything and everything. And then I like hit this golden nugget where it's like, is anyone else, it was in Spanish, but it's like, is anyone else, you know, what are we doing? Where are we moving when these guys are coming and taking our land? And I'm like, what what is he talking about? Because it was written so sort of like inconspicuously. Like he was very just like, you wouldn't really know what to think. Yeah. But if you're looking at it with the lens that I have on for this job, you know that something is fishy.
That's right.
So I'm like, this is crazy. So I reach out to him and I reach out to like everyone who liked the post and everyone who commented the post and everyone like whatever, whoever interacted, right? And come to find out, like we knew this was going on, but not, I guess, not to the extent that it was, especially in like highly populated touristic areas, close to touristic areas, yes. Let's say, where the cartel would go in, pull up at someone's farm, go up to the farmer and be like, okay, so here's the deal. Either give me $70,000 or you have 3 days, vacate your farm, don't take any of the cars, don't take any of the furniture, don't take anything, just get the hell out and this is ours. And like people were fully and are losing their livelihoods. Like these are avocado farms. Do you know how fucking long it takes to grow an avocado tree? I think it's a tree. In Spanish, it's like a huerta. I don't know.
I eat 2 avocados every day and I have no idea how long it takes.
It's crazy. I think you should search it up, but it's like I think it's like 7 years or something. It's like, don't quote me on that. Like, let's figure it out for real.
How long does it take to grow an avocado
I
tree?
knew this when I was doing the story.
I believe you. 3 to 4 years. That's a long ass time.
That's a long ass time. Yeah. So imagine like a huge like
wait 13 years or more too. Should add that.
And usually they fail. So like in these group chats that I was in, people were like, look at my Haas avocado tree. Like it's failing and I've already had it for like 5 years. And people are like, you got to restart. Like that thing's a goner. Whoa. So like imagine you've spent like generations building this. You have a farm, your family's taken care of, you have like 2 trucks, you know, you're doing well, like this is your livelihood.
You're doing it right.
You're doing it right. That's the thing. You're not growing poppy. You're not like, you are doing it right. And then 5 armed guys pull up in like a decked out truck and they're like, okay, you've got 3 days. Either get fucking lost or give me a shit ton of cash that these people don't have. Yeah. Like, and so that was a really big story. So I'm pitching this story and a lot of outlets are interested in this story.
All right, tell me if this sounds familiar. You sign up for something, you forget about it after the trial period ends, and then you're charged. Month after month after month. The subscription's there, but you're not using it. And worst of all, you don't even realize it. In fact, I just learned that 85% of people have at least one subscription they're paying for every month that they don't even use. Thanks to my friends over at Rocket Money, though, I can now see all of my subscriptions in one place, cancel the ones I'm not using anymore, and save money. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so that you can grow your savings. And that's another thing too. I don't mind the bank I'm at, but one thing that does drive me nuts is that I can't see my inflows and outflows of cash in a truly organized manner, and that's where Rocket Money also has now come in to help there as well. Rocket Money's dashboard gives you a clear view of your expenses across all of your accounts. In fact, the new goals feature automatically saves money for you so that you don't even have to think about it. Pay off credit card debt, put away money for a house, or just build your savings. Rocket Money makes it easy. Rocket Money has over 5 million users, and get this, they've saved $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using the app's premium features. I don't know about you, but $740 is a lot of money to me. So cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/Julian today. That link is in the description below. Once again, that's rocketmoney.com/Julian. And third time for effect, rocketmoney.com/Julian. Go on and get it.
But I just started freelancing and I was like, 21 or 22 at the time, like in Mexico by myself, like young girl who I didn't really do stories of this nature, especially not on my own. And they're like, Katarina, this is great. And we've seen your previous reporting, but we're not going to send you there. And we're like, we can't. This is too dangerous and we don't want to assume responsibility for your safety. And we don't know how you act in like a hostile environment. And I was like, don't worry, like I have my hostile environment training. But but like obviously like gun to your head, like hostile environment training like out the door, right? Yeah. So
what kind of places were you reaching out to for this? Like can you name companies or?
Yeah, like CBC, NBC, BBC, and now like I work with those. So it's great. But at the beginning, it was so hard because I didn't realize that I was gonna have to build up slowly and like slowly get into the dangerous stuff. Like I would have to start on a smaller scale, which for someone like me was very hard because I'm very like all or nothing. Like we're fucking doing this or just don't even bother. But I did that. Like I did my due diligence. I was doing stories for them, built it up to the point where it was like, okay, then I covered Mexican elections, which was also very significant for me early on in my career because it's like first female president in Mexico. Also,
what's her name again? You
Claudia
said it earlier.
Sheinbaum.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like lots of controversy around it because like I was saying, it's, you know, a lot of people associate this party with the cartel and taking funds from the cartel. So
Can you actually expand upon that while we're on it? Like what happened here? Because it was a big story. It kind of got lost in the shuffle a little bit. I can't say I follow. It came out this year. Yeah, I can't say that I follow Mexican politics closely or whatever, but like a lot of people who I think know a lot more than me were like, she kind of came out of nowhere, it seemed like.
Well, she didn't come out of nowhere, but
to be president, I mean.
And that was because the reason why it was just like from 0 to 100 for Sheinbaum was because the previous president, AMLO, endorsed her so heavily, and she started her campaign before she was legally allowed to start campaigning. But like she never got any trouble for that because why did she start campaigning or why didn't she get in trouble?
Why didn't she get in trouble?
Well, because the acting president was the guy basically telling everyone vote for her. She won with the greatest landslide victory ever in Mexican history.
Really?
Yeah. Like so now she like and people who didn't vote for her are just like devastated because they're like, this is way too much power for someone who we feel like doesn't represent us. I mean, like as in any democratic government.
Oh, is it also? Oh, so it's not like weighted by vote, meaning she doesn't get more. She doesn't get to control more. I don't know how it works below them, but like she doesn't get to control more seats as a result of getting 60% of the vote versus 55. You understand what I'm saying?
No.
So like it's totally different in the United States. Like there's separate elections, but like in this case, I don't know much about this. If the Mexican president wins, it's not like if they win with 60% of the votes, they get to place 60% of people in whatever this may be here, a House or a Congress or something like that, versus if it's 55, they get to place 55. See what I'm saying? It's not like that, right?
We'll have to Google it because I don't know, but I know it is. It's a republic. It's the same like type of government as the United States.
Got it.
The thing is like because she won with such a landslide victory, she obviously like she's doing this whole judicial reform thing right now. We don't need to get into that. And it's like super convoluted, but it's caused a lot of controversy in Mexico. But going back to like what I said about, you know, it being like the biggest cartel in the country is that this year it was revealed that the previous president, AMLO, took around $2 million in funds from the Sinaloa cartel. It wasn't, you know, directly funneled to him. It was given to his driver/personal aide, and then it went to his campaign in 2006. And for a long time, people were saying, and other journalists were saying, like, this guy is on the payroll. He's on the payroll, and he just like Sheinbaum, he had a lot of support, and he also had a significant victory. And so people, his supporters, were like, "No way!" And
how did the story come out? Like, what was the source?
I can't remember if it was the New York Times or if it was ProPublica. I don't remember. It was one of the two. I'm like 90.
So they had anonymous sources that were giving them proof of this.
Yeah, they figured it out, and so they did like a whole investigation, and it was really significant because the reason why this party has so much support is because of their social programs and the pension plan that never really existed before, paid time off. In Mexico, typically the work week and for like a minimum wage worker is 6 days a week. It's not like here in Canada where it's 5 days a week. And minimum wage is just like is very low. And typically, if you're working a minimum wage job in Mexico, you are working a job that is supplemented with tips. So, it's constantly changing whatever you're making. Anyways, the supporters like this because a lot of the supporters are lower class, lower middle class. And so they felt like they were seeing benefits from the policy. On the other hand, people who didn't support them were like, this is a very corrupt party. These are very corrupt individuals. And we need to look at how this impacts the long run. And I'm not saying, like, personally, I'm not on either side and I'm not even Mexican. But we kind of are seeing long-term effects at this point, like what's going on in Sinaloa with this turf war, and the governor being, a Morena party member is like, these are the long-term effects of when your government has such deep-rooted corruption that now regular people are dying and getting caught in the crossfire.
How well do you know, like, the history of the cartel over the past 40 years, 40, 50 years?
I don't know. Like, I know, I guess, how well?
Yeah, like breaking down, almost like if you were going to break down the 5 families in New York and kind of just timeline of how things built and who was around.
I guess good.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
All right. I want to go back there just to start a little bit with some context here to build up to where we are then. So for people out there who aren't everyone's heard of the Mexican cartels, everyone knows what they do and whatever. But when did they start to have serious influence, and who were like the godfathers of that in, say, like the 70s and 80s?
The 70s and 80s?
Yeah.
I could not tell you. But what I know, like, the main godfathers of, this sort of time of when we hear about this and we're on social media, and, we have, like, Narcos. Like, okay, so Narcos goes into that.
Yes.
The second season, I think, is like Narcos Mexico or whatever.
Mexico, that's right.
It really goes into that, like the history and the depth of it. But I have been so hyper-focused on like what's going on now because also, okay, this is another thing, right? And we'll get into the history stuff for sure. But like to add, for me, like there are a lot of journalists who are focused on this, like you have like Cartel Girl, whatever. But I try my best to not to get into like the gossipy nitty-gritty because sometimes I feel like a lot of people who are on this beat get lost in the sauce and are focusing on things that they're so bureaucratic within the cartels that you're almost like losing the focus of like, okay, but like how do we dismantle this as a whole, and like who is actually being affected on the ground, and like what is going on, and like let's look at this as a bigger picture, honestly, because sometimes we're getting so into it. And it's like, even with the Narcos Mexico show, right? Like it's a glamorized way to tell this story. And I try not to get into that. And it can be very addicting. I understand, because even when I'm getting into that, sometimes I stop myself and I'm like, how much does this really matter if I know this? Or if I'm like, I can analyze this? Because what I want to talk about and focus on is like, who is dying? How does that stop? What is happening in court? Like what role does the governments play in this? So yeah, but the main people right now that like we're always hearing about is El Mayo, which is obviously like the faction of Sinaloa Cartel, El Chapo, his sons, the Chapitos, and El Mencho, which is the Jalisco Nueva Generación cartel, who's very low key to an extent. And then there's so many different cartels, and like there's like Zetas, Viagras, the Gulf Cartel, and there's so many throughout. But at the end of the day, what we see is that the Sinaloa cartel has its roots so deep within the country and within organized crime and cartel infrastructure in a way that I would find it very hard to believe that they just don't run everything behind the scenes. And we've seen that happen just recently, because during this turf war, the new generation cartel, who's notoriously like violent and like just with their own, backed the Chapitos. So that was like a significant development to have. It's like,
why did they back them?
Because they took their side instead of Mayo's side for this Sinaloa cartel turf war.
And was that part of what led to El Mayo's capture?
No, this happened. This just happened. Like,
Okay.
I want to say like a few days ago.
Okay.
Where they announced that like they formed an alliance, and that would be a fucking powerhouse. But here's the on the bright side, when it comes to those powerhouses, when there is a sense of organization in like this business, I would call it. It's more peaceful for everyday people because no one's fighting over turf.
Yeah, they always say when the governments make their big case and cut off the head of the snake, start slithering like fucking crazy.
Yeah.
And you see way more violence because it sucks, but sometimes the devil you know is a lot better than the devil you don't.
100%. And that was the thing too that I was thinking about, especially when I was in Culiacan, is that, okay, so, you know, you've got Chapo, you've now got Mayo, you know, there's, you know, the sons are next and the next leaders or whatever, but there's always going to be a bigger and badder guy that comes out of the woodworks. And I mean, you want to get the bad guy, but how badly do you want to see what's going to come out next? Especially the amount of suffering that I saw when I was there was just like.
When you were where?
In Culiacan in Sinaloa. I was there like about 2 weeks ago. And it's just ridiculous. Like, people have no quality of life right now.
What on a day to day? Obviously, they're all killing each other, but like, can we get some color commentary there?
Yes, I'll paint you a picture. Is
Please.
that okay? So let's say I wake up at 6 a.m. I check the group chats, or a fellow journalist tells me, "Hey, Kat, we got to go here on the side of the highway. There's like 3 dead bodies that were dumped, and military presence is there. They're waiting for the fiscalia, the like investigators, to get there." So we drive down. It's 7 a.m. at this point. There's 3 bodies completely battered and murdered, bloodied, and always like naked. Like it's like a shame thing, a humiliation, to leave them in a very public display and in the nude. So they're there. People are walking their kids to school, walking by, and you know, like for the most part, they're not batting an eye because they know the crime's already done. They know that they're not going to get caught in the crossfire. You know, National Guard is already there, and these guys are laying there. Sometimes National Guard will throw like a tarp over them, but you know, the head is like still out. You know, you see everything. There's blood everywhere. So first you get that early morning murder call that happened probably at around like 2 or 3 a.m. because, you know, you can kind of smell it too, and like the flies are there. So, and it's fucking hot in Culiacan. Like it's, when I got off the plane, I was sweating bullets and I was like, oh my God, dead bodies in this weather, like it's just a recipe for disaster. So you see that, and you see families walking by, and, you know, people kind of walk out of their house, but no one will talk to you. No one will say they saw anything. Everyone is like a woman I interviewed. She said everyone in this city is just blind, deaf, and mute. Like they didn't see anything. They don't know anything.
This example you're giving me right now, were these people who were in the life, or were these citizens?
Citizens, and regular citizens who just happened to walk out of their house to go to work that morning, and there's fucking dead bodies outside of their driveway.
I mean the dead bodies.
Oh, of course it's presumed that they're involved. Like this is but that's like another can of worms too, about like you see these dead bodies and people just don't really bat an eye because you automatically assume that they're bad. So it's like, well,
but they aren't always, right?
They aren't always. And also it's like, I don't know, it's still a human life, right? Like there's and there's a significant loss of a sense of humanity in this region. But anyways, so you see that, and then it's like, okay, now we're going to go to the highway because there's a blockade, a narco blockade. This is really common. And there's like 3 big rigs blocking like the Mazatlan-Culiacan highway, like a major highway that connects the capital city and then like the beach city.
Yeah.
So then we're like driving there. We have to get out way before the blockade even starts, and there's like flames, and then we're running. And then typically there's already bodies because the military, by the time journalists get there, like I'm not going to go there if it's, the narco blockade is active, because especially if like a journalist pulls up, I don't want to find out what their reaction would be, especially as a woman too. So we pull up and it's like, you needed to be somewhere that day. Too bad. Go home. Like the major highway is closed. There's no chance. And then military brings in their tow vehicles. They're getting these trucks out of the way, and then business is normal, and then they'll take the bodies away. Okay, whatever. And then fast forward, as soon as it starts getting dark, like everyone's having dinner at like 4 p.m. now.
At 4 p.m.
Yes, because like you can't go out. Like you literally cannot go out at night. Not only does everything close, so like even if you wanted to go out, but nobody wants to go out. So, and everything is shut down. As soon as it's dark, it's a ghost town. And this is a major city, and it's a ghost town. So people are having their dinner at 4 p.m. It gets dark. Boom. Literally as soon as it gets dark, it's like, we got a call. There was a confrontation. Okay, I pull up. There's a bunch of military. And also because I'm not Mexican, they're like, who the hell are you? And show me your press pass. And I'm just like, it's complicated. And then the last name thing, oh my God. It's like, they're like, this is fake. And I'm like, just like Google me. Just Google me. Like I can't deal with
Google me, bitch.
Google me, bitch. Like I should be asking the questions here. It's my job.
Half these fucking military guys are probably in the cartel themselves. Yeah, you're looking. That's not reassuring. That look right there.
Oh boy, and I could actually tell a good story about that.
Yeah, please do.
But let me tell you, finish my day in the life.
This,
So it's like, there's what's really common, and I did a reel about this, is basically, if there is like a confrontation, like a fight between the factions or whatever, someone's trying to kill someone, they will provoke a car accident, kill those people, bomb, bomb, bomb. There's, shells and gunshot holes, and then take those guys, or not kill them, kidnap them, take them, and then those are the guys that we'll find the next day in the morning on the side of the highway. So this is the day in the life in Culiacan, and it doesn't end. And some nights are worse than others. Some nights it's literally like all you hear is like pop, 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 and you'll see smoke, and you see it's like fucking fireworks, but it's not fireworks. And no one leaves. It's so funny too, because like on one of my last nights when I was there at the hotel, there was like also no one at the hotel, because like no one is going there for a vacation right now. The only people that were there were like women going to get like BBLs and stuff. Like when I would be outside the lobby smoking, like I'd see like some girl go in with no ass and then walk out just like all bandaged with like a fatty.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was
some fucking valley girl from California who's got no clue what's going on around her.
Literally, I'm like,
I'm here for my BBL.
In a war zone.
Oh my God, it's so beautiful out here, but there's no one here. I wonder why.
Yeah, literally. Or like people who are from certain countries, like Balkan countries or whatever, trying to get into the United States without a visa. Yeah. So
that's happening.
A lot. Yeah, I met some people. But anyways, so on one of those nights, like one of the hotel workers, like I was sitting working in the lobby because internet sucks too. And he's like, I always see you here working and alone, and what are you doing here? And sometimes I'm like, I don't know if I should tell people, because what if I tell the wrong person?
Yeah.
So typically I won't lie, but I'll just kind of like avoid the question, or just kind of like play my like, oh my God, no, I'm just like trying to get some work done. Like, because I don't look like my job, which kind of works in my favor sometimes, right?
That helps.
Anyways, but he was cool, and I was like, I'm actually like covering this, and he's like, no way, you need a beer. So then we end up like having a few drinks together. He was super cool, like super nice. And he's like, you don't understand, like life sucks here. Like it's always like this. We just can't go out. We can't do anything. And I know, like there's nothing you can't go pull up to Culiacan right now for a work trip and be like, you know what? Let me just hop on Tinder and like just see if I can go. No way. Like I was work mode, like it's hotel out to work, hotel out to work. And when I'm going out to work, like I'm seeing the worst of the worst shit. And everyone's lives are impacted by this. It's horrible.
Yeah, I it's an overused cliche phrase, obviously, but I can't imagine because like all the little things we can take for granted, just have the freedom to do our day. They live under a constant war threat where it's not a geopolitical war. It's like an enemy within. That just says they're gonna run. This is our country now. This is what we're doing, and if you say a word, we're gonna slit your throat and your whole family.
Literally, and this is exactly like you want to go grocery shopping. Good luck. We pull up one day to a Soriana. Like I also posted this reel, and it's Soriana's like a supermarket, because a guy ran in screaming for help, apparently because he was getting chased by armed men because they had misidentified him as someone who he wasn't. And he's
boy.
Call the military, call them. Like, and I feel like if he was lying, he wouldn't have been like hid in the bathroom and asked them to call the National Guard. So poor guy, if that was really the case, like that's terrifying.
Oh, they didn't do it and then he got caught?
No, the military pulled right the fuck up because
that's good.
Right now there's no municipal police. Like they took all their guns away and made them stay in the police department because there's corruption.
Oh.
And so the only
they give them a pipe whistle.
They have like a baton.
Yeah, it's a country run by cartel members and the baton's going to do a lot.
Like, right? But anyways, it's because the fear is like that these guys are involved. Anyways, and I'm like shooting this reel outside and I'm like, okay, military is here because this guy was apparently hiding in the bathroom saying that he was going to get fucking murdered for being someone who he's not. And as I'm filming this, literally it was perfect timing. I'm like, as you can see, like everyday life. And as I'm saying that, I see this like family of 4 walk up behind me and they're just looking like, fuck. Like they came to grocery shop, right? And they turned to me and they're like, ¿Podemos entrar? Like, can we go in? I'm like, no.
Not today.
Like, yeah, no, like this is not gonna happen. And they're just like, fuck me. Like, and I get it because imagine you're just trying to do regular shit.
Yes.
And you can't get anything done. And even if you go, you're literally taking a risk leaving your house. Like, I just posted a video. There was a crazy shootout the other day, and this dad is like filming on his phone, and you can hear the kid. You can't see them, but they're laying on the ground, and I think it's like they're in a food place, and the kid is like, Papa, like, I'm scared. Those are gunshots. I'm scared. And the dad's like, we're going to be okay. And the kid's like, are we going to be okay? Just tell me we're going to be okay. And it's like a little kid, you can tell.
It's terrifying.
And growing up with that, that's not normal.
No. See, again, it goes back to what you said about like being desensitized. They're desensitized to it, but it changes who they are as a person. Mm-hmm. And you think about this because it's very similar. Like when you look at different places that are like terrorist hotspots around the world, if that's what they grow up knowing, and those are the tough guys in the neighborhood,
that's what you become.
Right. And then, by the way, all these other dudes from other countries are dropping bombs on you to try to catch them all the time. You don't know the difference between that. You just take on what your environment does. The concept of being a product of your environment is probably one of the truest things about humanity ever stated.
And then get this, if you see the guys who are supposed to be good doing the same bad things, like you have a cop coming up to your dad's corner store saying, you're going to pay me fucking $5,000 if you want to keep running this business or we're going to burn it down, then who is the good guy? Like, who is your Superman here? Like, there's no fucking, it's not like Batman and Joker. It's like Joker and Joker 2.0.
That's right. That's a great point. Because the examples you see, the lines are totally blurred everywhere you go, and it all ends with the same thing. And you become, I would imagine, like as a kid, you become totally numb to that, and you're like, okay, power. Who has power? They do. That's what I'll
money.
do then. Yeah, well, exactly. Yeah.
And then people watch these videos and they're like, how are these guys cutting off these people's heads? Well, probably because they've seen extreme levels of violence their whole life.
Absolutely.
It's normal. And speaking of, the Joker and Joker 2.0, this is what I was going to tell you about, like the military guys, right?
Yeah. How deep does this go?
It's really bad. There's like a lot of footage too on Twitter right now where you'll see like military vehicles or soldiers, whatever, with they have like, so the hat, like the sombrero, like the white hat, it represents the Chapitos, right? That pizza.
Can we pull that up? Chapito's white hat?
Yeah. And there's a photo on my Twitter of 5 bodies that were dumped outside like a fucking water park for kids with the hats on it. And like it's a really striking photo.
Yeah, we can't show that one, obviously.
Yes. Yeah. But so you'll see military vehicles, there's like photos of it where like this one military vehicle apparently has like the white hat like on the dashboard. And
that's not it, right?
No, it's not. You're gonna have to search up like
white,
like search up Chapitos sombrero, I think.
Okay.
That could work.
All right.
I don't have my glasses.
Images, good. Like
that first one.
What Ovidio's wearing there?
Yeah, like that one.
Okay.
And you'll see they'll have like little versions of that, or they'll pop those types of hats on people when they kill them.
Yeah, what was the one you were just starting to say when we looked at that? Not the water park one, it was right after that.
The military cars?
Yeah.
So like, is that what you wanted to hear?
Yeah.
So like there's, like some military guys who obviously are, in this, and they'll wear it or like they'll have it on the dashboard of their car, which it really goes to show like, damn, like you're supposed to be the good guy and you're repping
openly
the bad guy openly. And it was crazy too. This is like a side note, but this also like really stood out to me was when I was reporting over there. I was with another journalist, like local journalist there, Jose. He was really great. He's a really good journalist. Shout out. And he helped me a lot. And also it was really good just because like to not be alone. And also it was like my first time going there, and I'm going there during like this fucking culiacanazo.
Yeah.
So, but there were moments where I did go alone, and I was like filming myself talking about something one time, and like the military vehicle pulls up and the guys are all like sitting in the back, and like 2 of them start like waving and whistling and blowing kisses. Yeah, and I have it on video, and I'm like, so I need glasses, but I lost my glasses, so like I can't properly see shit sometimes. And also when I film, I take off my glasses, which is how I lost them. So I'm like not wearing my glasses. And then I'm like, no way. So I look behind me because I'm like, no, they're probably fucking with someone, right?
Yeah.
No. And they're like, hey. And I'm like, you're joking right now. Like to me. And I put on my glasses and I'm just in the video, like I'm so confused. Because that is a massive breach of trust, and like in authority, in someone who like has way more power than me,
because they know who you are too. They know what you're doing.
They know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
They know I'm like young woman, and there's like a group of men who have arms, and it's like you pull some shit like that, like any other day, fuck you up. But the power imbalance there, like,
yeah,
we could not go band for band because
no, you can't be dumb too, because like you said, some of them wear this openly.
Yeah,
that they're paid off by these guys. I mean, that's stunning to me. I mean, I guess it shouldn't be, but still.
And it's funny because I told one of my girlfriends about this, and she's like, "That's a story," and I was like, "No," because like also as a journalist, like you don't want to become the story. Like you want to tell the story of what's going on. But a moment like that, it's like, yeah, why do you feel so comfortable doing that to a journalist there? And then shit went crazy too, because like they shot up, not the military, like a news outlet got shot up while I was there. A
news outlet got shot up.
Yeah, I posted on the gram. It was the cars out front, like all the tires were popped, like there was bullet holes everywhere.
All right, real quick, I just gotta go to the bathroom, but I want to hear this
whole
story. All right, we'll be right back.
Oh my god.
All right, we're back. That was a longer break than expected. Sorry about that. Thank you for your patience.
No, it's no problem.
If anyone out there understands why the Lacey recording into our ATEM mini ISO does not get read on a fucking Mac sometimes randomly, please help. I've been working on this problem for the whole year. It's been such a pain in the ass for Alessi and me. And I had the help of one of the fans, Marcus Wins this, to build a PC into my Mac that I then have to like go in there and pull the files, and luckily it just works. So we have the files from what we just did, but been a pain in the ass.
Oh, you thought they were gone?
Yeah, I knew we'd be able to get it now because this is my first time to the rodeo, but like last week it happened with John Kiriakou, and that basically cost us, it cost me 5-6 hours one day sitting on with Marcus trying to get it. Luckily this time I didn't have to get him on and I got it, but it's still like
There's always something.
there's always
It's
something.
part of the process.
It's like
We just adapt.
but like Danny Jones has the same fucking equipment we do down to the hard drives, and we've bought several of these. It's not any one of them, and he never has this problem ever.
Maybe human error.
That's what I'm saying. But like we haven't. Alessi and I, like, we're anal. We watch the fucking red button right here, and it never goes off. So if that doesn't go off, and then the data's always there, it just doesn't show up on Mac. It's so weird. So if anyone can help with that, please shoot me a DM at Julian D. Dorey on Instagram. Help. And on Twitter if you're there too. But anyway, sorry. So you were telling a story about a news outlet that got shot up. What happened?
So basically, like one night, all hell broke loose. Nobody could leave. This was the night when I had a few drinks with the hotel receptionist as I was working in the lobby. And the next day, it was like a news outlet was shot up. And what I kind of figured was that it was kind of like killing two birds with one stone, shooting up that news outlet, because they shot that news outlet up to send a message, as like, hey, whatever, there was something that they reported on, or they were sticking their nose somewhere that whoever shot them up didn't want them to be doing. And B, it was also a great distraction from whatever else they were trying to do at the same time, or whatever else was going on. They knew that like that top story was going to be that the news outlet got shot up, right? Because you attack press, it's like you're attacking speech, you're attacking so many components of like democracy generally. Right. Anyways, fast forward a few days later, one of the newspaper delivery men for that news outlet was kidnapped, and he's still missing. Yeah.
Oh, he's gone. Sorry.
No, it's really sad. Like,
that's very sad, but like
yeah, like his daughter like just put out a plea being like, I want my father back alive.
This is horrible.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. I laugh because I mean,
it's okay.
Who really gets kidnapped? But that's horrible.
It's so bad because it's directly attacking press. And so like, and what a lot of people don't understand, or at least I feel like a lot of people don't understand, is when you're attacking the press, like it's not just like, oh, like shut up, journalist. No, it's like, these are the people who are literally going out to get information for the public and to tell the stories that impact you guys. So if they're being attacked and if they're working under the like this realm of fear, how the fuck are they supposed to, how are we supposed to be able to do our jobs unless you are just like this like some crazy bitch cartel girl who doesn't get scared and is like whatever. But for the most part, you don't want to die, and especially not doing your job.
Of course.
And that threat shouldn't exist for a job that is clean.
Also, you might feel differently too in the future if you have like a husband and kids.
100%.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Like I could be recruited to the fucking CIA right now because I'm just like, it's me and nothing else, right?
Don't say that out loud too much. People might think a thing or two, but
I don't think I would joke about it if
that's what they say.
I've actually had people in Mexico be like, you're a spy. And I'm like, no. I've had like people have checked my passport because it sounds ridiculous. Like at least to me, I'm like, I called my dad and I'm like, so-and-so like thought I was a spy, like for real.
Yeah.
And I would be a shitty spy if you think that I am one. So clearly not. But anyways, back to this. That same day that news outlet got shot up, I managed to catch the governor in a scrum. A scrum is like when all the
Yes.
journalists, yeah. So,
Did you have this on Instagram?
yeah.
Yeah, I think I saw this. The guy with the glasses?
Yes.
Yeah.
And like all the comments on that post are like, he's so corrupt.
Yes.
Yeah. And so like when I caught him in the scrum, I was like, how do you expect to maintain a freedom of press in Sinaloa when journalists are constantly under attack? I mean, I just got a notification that like this journalist was just killed in Michoacan.
Ugh.
And he was like, gave this super long-winded answer that basically alluded to nothing. Like, it doesn't give me a peace of mind, someone who's not even seeking peace of mind. So imagine folks who are there and living this daily, and it's like, I could become a target. And it's like a newspaper delivery guy. Like, from what I know, like he wasn't even writing the stories.
Yeah, that seems like a low blow.
It's a message.
Yeah, it's exactly. It's a message. They're going after someone who's completely innocent. In that case, basically to say the people who, in their eyes, aren't innocent but are literally just doing their job. By the way,
Yeah.
like, ooh, we'll go after this guy. What do you think we'll do to you?
And like this has always been an issue in Mexico. Actually, Mexico is the most dangerous place in the world for journalists. It has the highest rate of murders of journalists. And then add onto that being a woman, where Mexico literally has a femicide protocol where if a woman is murdered, it's not investigated as a homicide, it's investigated as a femicide, because they literally have an epidemic of violence against women, of female murders.
A femicide?
Yes. Femicide is like murdering a woman. Homicide, but woman.
I've never heard that before. So I didn't know that had like a gender.
Yeah. Femicide. It's an international thing, but particularly in Mexico, they've literally implemented a femicide protocol, which is like the specific investigative unit that goes to investigate homicide against a woman.
Wow.
Because it's so bad. So like you combine that, and it's like, okay, you want to tell stories, you want to find the truth, you want to be on the ground and showing exactly what's happening, and like that's my goal here. Is I don't want to just be like in the comfort of my home. I love to be in the comfort of my home, but be in the comfort of your home and it's like, okay, I'm talking to people on Zoom, I'm writing about it and I'm posting it. Fuck that. If I'm going there and I can literally show you, look, this is what's happening. And I've had people like message me and they're like, Katarina, like you'd have way more followers or traction if you used a better camera or whatever. I'm like, this is real. Like I go there with my phone and my DSLR and I'm like, look, right behind me, this man was just killed.
Yeah, I think the quality's fine.
I'm happy with it.
Yeah.
For me, I just care about keeping it real. Like I honestly
agreed.
Yeah. So
not to cut you off, but like I've been seeing all because they're at the very end of these campaigns now, and I see all these different campaigns using like 8K cameras now to try to capture stuff, and it just feels fake.
It feels like a movie.
Know? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. They're shooting it with like 23 frames per second shutter speed, 24 frames per second. It's something about it just feels off.
It's too overly produced, and I think when you're telling stories that are so raw, you have to tell it in a raw way, because otherwise like an audience is looking at a screen and sure, they could be seeing the same content like through a great 24 frames, whatever, your phone, it doesn't, a GoPro. But if it's real and you're showing what's going on, especially when it's something like this, where people are dying, people have a terrible quality of life, and there's like constant violence, it needs to be real. And so I don't know how I got to that point, but
well, you were saying about the journalists being killed and how, in particularly in the country, there's something called femicide because, and they have there's investigations that are called this because there's so much violence against women, and I see what you're saying in the sense that like, people need to feel when tragedy's occurring, people need to feel like it's their backyard.
Yeah.
If it's not, which in most situations it's not your backyard where something may be happening, like you have to make them feel like, ooh, that could be my daughter, or that could be my sister, or something like that, or I could be right there. And this is hard. I mean, I one of my friends, Paul Rosalie, and my other friend Ryan Tate, they do a lot of work in the Amazon and Africa with wildlife. It's hard to show people and get them to totally care at all times. Like, people are very interested in it, but it's hard to show them the tragedy of trees burning or elephants being massacred, to somebody in fucking Massachusetts. It's a tough battle. For you, you're down in Mexico, and this is humans now, like where you're seeing people getting killed. But how much can the people here relate to that kind of violence at all times completely in the area? There's a lot of people in this country that can't.
That's the thing. And I think that, like, when everyone is going through their own shit, they're like, why should I care? And a lot of the people who are interested in watching this is like, they want something sensationalized. And I've actually had people be like, Katarina, you showing the actual dead bodies, that's bad. It's sensationalizing it. And I'm like, I'm not doing it in a sensational way. The way and my goal of showing it raw is being like, look how bad this is. This is why you should care. And this is how people are suffering. I'm not like, boom, look at this body. Isn't that fucking crazy? Yeah, it is. But the point, it should not get lost in the sauce here. The point is that, okay, like for Americans, for example, right? Like Americans, Mexico, you guys share a border. And like,
Didn't know that.
especially like with elections, with so much of what goes on here. Mexico and America are so intertwined, and when something like this is going on south of the border, it will always spill over, like no matter what. And whether that's like with the fentanyl crisis or like the blues and the teas, like all of this shit that we're seeing with the drugs, but with this cartel violence, like, do you really not think that there's guys who have cartel connections right probably down the street here?
Oh, 100% there are. Yeah.
Yeah. And like all of that is connected. When I did my interview with the Sinaloa cartel guy, who is based out of my home city in Vancouver, BC, and they're like running the fentanyl labs, it's just crazy to me because like that, we don't share a border with Mexico. Canada's not, right? So the fact that this is so widespread, it's like a virus, and they're seeing this in Western Europe now too. All of this is connected, and this war that's happening in Mexico and particularly in Sinaloa, in other areas as well, these casualties are not specific to Mexico.
Yes, I think that's a great point. Now, did this Sinaloa guy you sat down
Yeah.
with, do you have that on your Instagram?
I do.
Can we pull that up real quick and see some of that?
I think it's from August.
Right. So it's on Instagram. So you had his identity.
Yeah, I covered his
shaded
identity.
away.
I changed his voice, and I shot him in a silhouette.
Got it. I'll let Alessi go find that, but before he does, how did you get this guy?
Okay, so basically, I had heard that the Sinaloa cartel was running operations in Canada. They were no longer producing fentanyl in Mexico. So
they're doing it in Canada.
Yeah.
Whoa.
And they're sending it south into the United States from Canada. So like fentanyl is not being really produced at all in Mexico anymore because too many people were dying, and it caught too much attention. So
they moved it to Canada.
Yeah. And the reason why this was like working too was because the visa requirement for Mexicans to get into Canada for the longest time, it only just recently changed, was a lot easier than for them to get in the United States. Also, it was so unsuspecting.
Yeah. It's in August, by the way, Alessi. But yeah, go ahead. It was so unsuspecting.
It was so I can show it to him.
Yeah, actually, let's help him out.
Yeah, it's him.
That's it. Okay. You want to watch this real quick?
Yeah, we can watch this.
All right, let me
and then I can explain it to you even more.
All right, you got it?
Officially made British Columbia, Canada, ground zero for domestic fentanyl production. I spoke to a Sinaloa cartel member who is running major labs across the country.
I pick up things when they are sent to me. I make sure everything is okay. I am disturbed, so to speak.
I'm a distributor.
I don't see retail, just for wholesale. The issue is getting a little dangerous because they're making pills here now. That attracts more government. They send people from Sinaloa to do it here, closer to the states that they want to reach. And the Asians get the chemicals here. Yeah. Okay. All right, that's good. Thank you, Leslie. So I knew nothing about that with Canada.
Yeah. So, and when I was reaching out to law enforcement in Canada, it was very much like if fentanyl was being produced here and like by the cartels, we would know about it. And it's like, okay, well, I'm fucking talking to this guy tomorrow. So like, he's going to take me to the lab. So
get your lab coat.
But also like a problem in Canada too. And I hate this is that, in Canada, if like police like they want your source, like you have an anonymous illegal source, there's a Supreme Court precedent that was set because of like this case with like an ISIS source that now if they take you to court, you do have to reveal the source.
Oh, that's crazy.
It totally fucks it up.
Yeah, I mean that's because the whole separation, it's the fourth estate. It's supposed to be its own thing, like its own, and some people could run with this the wrong way, but its own form of governance in its way.
Yes.
That's supposed, in an ideal world, supposed to represent the people.
And
Wow.
if that ever happened to me, like, and I tell my sources this, like, I would fight tooth and nail, and I like delete everything afterwards because I'm like, no way. If you're gonna try to get me, like, be so fucking for real right now.
Yeah.
But anyways, like, I'm not a cop. What do I have to do with this?
Yeah.
So, anyways, I was told early this year that like fentanyl was really not being produced at all in Mexico, and I'm like, okay, well, so then what's happening? Because fentanyl is a huge problem in the United States and Canada. And like particularly in Canada, in Vancouver, like more people died of overdoses from opiates from fentanyl than COVID during COVID. It was like a huge deal. Our provincial health officer cried about it in one of her pressers about COVID. And she was like, she got choked up. She's like, so many people are dying from these drug overdoses.
Horrible.
It was so bad. And it's always been a problem, especially in Vancouver. But the fentanyl like really exacerbated the problem. Anyways, I find this out. I asked someone like, do you know, like, is there any way we can get a source who's doing it?
What kind of person are you asking that?
Someone who has really good sources and there was a good chance that he could find me someone that's in this because he finds a lot of sources and he's a trusted person. And also he knew how to tell these people that I'm a trusted person, that I'm not a rat. So, because sometimes also like going into something like this, if they don't know me, like I've had actually very good luck getting sources. And like we were just talking about this, that I like I don't judge and I'm not gonna go and like, yeah, it's just the way that I roll. Anyways, so I'm like, is there anyone, whatever. And he's like, okay, actually this guy reached out to me telling me that he is with Sinaloa Cartel and running operations for them, but he's going to end it soon. Like he's going to go back to Mexico. Like he's done because shit's heating up because of the pills.
Oh, and the operations.
Like he's not going to be involved in it anymore. It's still happening.
Yeah.
But this guy was like willing to talk about it.
Why do you think he was willing to talk about it?
I think that there's like sometimes a level of guilt, and because like Mexico's a very Catholic country, so I could be dead.
No, you're 100%
I mean, this is what I've observed.
It's just funny.
Is that when you know, a lot of people will really do anything for money, especially if it's a lot of money, especially if it's fast money. But that doesn't mean that these people's conscience don't catch up to them, because especially if they've grown up in like this very religious way and they're seeing people dying constantly. I mean, one thing is to kill the guy who's like in your, you know, your rival cartel. Another thing is to be like, I'm making drugs that are killing thousands of people like on a monthly basis. That's crazy, right?
Yeah.
So I think that was part of it. I also think that he just knew this information was strong and he was going to be getting out of it soon. Like he was going back to Mexico and I was looking for this information. So anyways, we start talking on like one of the apps, and
what's that conversation like? Like, hey, fellow Sinaloa friend. Like,
it's actually pretty chill. I'm like, I'm not like, hello, how are you? This is Katarina Szulc. Like,
I'm with CBC.
Yeah, no, I'm usually like, hey, compa, que rollo? Like, what's up? I heard you're doing some shit. You want to tell me about it? Like, it's really just, I try to keep it super cash. And they're like, yeah, actually. And then it's like a fucking 12-minute voice note. I'm like, what they're doing.
You just take out the recorder. Boop, boop, boop.
No, literally. But I love going in person though.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's literally like, okay, so blah blah blah, and like this source had actually sent this voice note like in spring, talking about how, the Sinaloa cartel needs money because they're gonna grab the Tío, they called him, which is El Mayo. They're like they're gonna take him away and
whoa. He was telling you El Mayo's about to go on the chopping block.
Yeah, months before it happened.
What?
Yeah. I'm not smiling because it's good. It's like, yeah, it was crazy.
You didn't run with that?
I couldn't. Like, how am I supposed to fucking verify that? I'm telling you.
I mean, you're looking at me like I know. I don't know. I'm just saying. That's like, I mean, whoa.
But after that happened, I was like, wow, this source is legit, because he literally said in Spanish, he's like, I have the voice note, but he was like,
oh, it was in a voice note.
I can't play it though.
I know you can't play it. That's just funny. It was in a voice note.
Yeah, right? Crazy.
Fucking guy couldn't text it. We could at least have a screenshot right now.
And also, like the way people from Sinaloa talk, I have trouble sometimes understanding because it's very much like not like that. So I'm like, fuck, like, and so I'm like listening to it over and over again.
You're like, did he just say what I think he said?
Yeah, basically, and it's like, so they're doing the pills and everything now because they need to generate money because they're going to grab the uncle, and they know they need money because in order to do this type of war that's going on right now, you need money. You need to hire a shit ton of people who are lookouts, who are sicarios, who are like runners and like just you literally need an army, right?
Yeah.
So they needed money, and he's like, they're going to grab the uncle and blah, blah. I was like, yeah, right.
Yeah, okay, buddy.
I was kind of like, okay, because everything else he told me added up, right? And that's why I ran with it anonymously, because typically I won't do anonymous shit. But because what I can smell bullshit from a mile away. So if I felt like his information didn't add up, I would never have run with it, and especially not anonymously. But what he was saying, it was just, yep. And so I did my due diligence too. I went on the street, like there's the street East Hastings. It's like our version of Skid Row, where it's like a lot of drugs, a lot of illegal stuff, a lot of homelessness. And I was like asking around, and people are like, yep. And I'm like, okay, but like, are you seeing these types of pills? And are you seeing these types of guys?
I thought you were asking around if they knew anything about El Mayo being taken.
Oh my God.
Yeah, totally, man.
That would be so bad. I can't believe
I
think
verified,
like that.
I verified it through some homeless people.
Thanks. You really hold me in high regard. That's great.
I'm just fucking with you. It's all good.
No, I went to kind of check out like what the drug trade was looking like, and there are some people there. They've been there for so long, and they're such high functioning addicts that like you can go and be like, hey, is this going on in this building across the blah blah, and they'll be like, listen, like this is what I know, and because I've been involved in that community reporting for so long. Well, in my terms, and like I was really involved. There's quite a few people there that like they'll tell me, and that it's good, and they know that I'm not gonna do anything stupid with whatever they tell me.
Yeah.
So
build trust.
Yeah, of course. So, anyways, then this guy's telling me, we've got this going on, and because, like I said, it was a lot easier to send guys to Canada than it was to the States because of the visa.
Wild though.
And because of refugee status. So like a ton of these guys that are running the operations, they're on refugee status. And get this, some of them have even got thrown in the bin. Like they've been in jail for like drugs. Yeah, and they're still there.
Oh my God.
And some of them for violent charges.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Makes me feel less bad about America. I'll say that. But goddamn.
No, like one thing about like the Canadian judicial system and like all like it's like honestly, yeah, I shouldn't even say it.
Well, now you gotta say it. You said you shouldn't, so now you have to.
You know, sometimes, fuck. You know, if like sometimes my girlfriends are like, my boyfriend is such an asshole. I'm like, you know, really, if he really ever does you dirty, you could just kill him. You'd probably do 2 years. You'd probably get 2 years and like probation. It's never.
That's not advice. It's a hypothetical.
Yeah,
YouTube.
no.
Don't demonetize us.
Oh, can that happen with that?
Oh, dude, you have no idea.
Okay, I'm joking.
Yes, this is a total joke. YouTube, thank you.
Yeah, no, don't do that. Like,
Yeah, don't ever do that. Never ever. Bad.
I mean,
They're
it
bad.
depends what he does. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. No. I'm joking.
So you guys
But
got a fucked up legal system.
It's just a way that I can kind of paint the picture of what it's like, and like, it's really unfortunate.
How were they getting there? Were they flying in, I assume?
Yep.
Yeah, because it's not just like crossing America just to cross into Canada.
No, they're yeah, that it wouldn't make sense. They're flying in, and the funniest part is when I went to Canada this summer to do this story, and I hadn't been back for a while, like I was in Mexico. I got pulled into secondary like for the first time ever, but it was because I had my cat with me. She goes everywhere with me.
What's secondary?
Oh, like when they do like the second check, like they check you and like what you've got, what have you been doing, like the customs thing, I guess, like security.
No, I'm not familiar with the term. Like when they pull you aside and wand you kind of thing?
No. So like it's when you get into the country and then it's like you talk to the border agent and then they like flag you and you have to go inside a room and they'll like look through your stuff. They'll ask you a lot of invasive questions because it's either
that must be my white privilege. I've never had that.
Yeah, actually probably.
Seriously.
Yeah. Sometimes it's random, but sometimes it's like we think you're suspicious, right? So I've never had that happen, but it was because I had my cat with me. So they like want to like make sure she has her rabies vaccine essentially.
Right.
So I go into secondary with her and the guy's like, "What were you doing in Mexico?" And like, "You were there for a long time." And I was like, "Funny that you ask because there's so many people here that are doing really bad things that have come from Mexico and it doesn't seem like you ask them shit because they're you're asking. I'm Canadian, bro. Like I'm coming home." Yeah. Like a little like welcome back, right? And he thought it was funny, and then that was just kind of demented. He tried to give me his number. I was you're on the
the customs guy was hitting on you.
Yeah,
you gotta love that.
You don't love that, like at all. I was like, get a grip. But
get on the Sicario next time, pal.
Yeah, God. Like, do you know who I know? No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
But so a lot of people are coming in with refugee status and
that's insane.
Mm-hmm. And then there's like a lot of people that are going there that actually need refugee status and they're not getting it. I did a lot of stories like that actually when I was back there.
What are they? Because if a lot of them, it's not one or two. If a lot of them are getting this, like, what are they, like the most charismatic dude in the airport?
That's funny, but I think there seems to be a system in place that I found in Mexico where there's like people running a sort of business where they can curate threats against you and like make it look really legit so you can file for your refugee status and it all looks legit.
Wow.
Yeah. And like you pay a certain amount and this person will like make it look like you are in danger. So you can't go back. So then you basically automatically get granted your refugee status.
So did you get to go to one of these labs though? Not as a refugee, obviously, because you didn't get that.
Yeah,
status.
I went. Yeah, I did go to one of the fentanyl labs.
Yeah. What was that like?
Well, first of all, like, I was like, I don't want to overdose because like if you come into contact with fentanyl, you can literally overdose, right?
It's horrible.
So I masked up and I'm like, okay, I'm not going to touch anything. And the lab though was not the guy that I interviewed's lab. It was a different lab. And it looks like a science lab. Like it's very like industrial, and the precursors that they have there, like they're very easy to get. You can even just get them from the United States. And they were telling me that
Get what?
the precursors, like the ingredients to make the drug, essentially. Like fentanyl is not hard to make. I feel like you could get demonetized.
Yeah,
from
let's
saying.
not tell people how to make it, but yeah.
Yeah, no, it's. I'm just saying, like for all educational purposes, is like.
Good. She's really good. Excellent.
It's not like this crazy, like you would think for how lucrative it is and how addictive it is, it would be like this crazy, like Walter White thing, but it's not. Like, really, if you have basic chemistry knowledge, you could probably make fentanyl. And if you like have access to the precursors,
I believe it.
So it was quite interesting to see. And it was like gross. It was dirty. Like, I don't know why. Maybe this is very naive, but I was expecting to go into like a lab, like where, you know, gloves and like,
Yeah.
you know, vials. I don't know why I anticipated that. It wasn't. And obviously, like I've seen, you know, how they make cocaine and heroin and whatever. And it's obviously, you know, they're doing it like in these big vats and it's not clean, and it's clandestine. So I don't know why I had assumed that it would be. I guess I assumed that it would be because like we went into someone's house. Like it wasn't, it was far. It was like further out of Vancouver.
So basically, it's like a trap house.
It is a trap house. Yeah.
Wow.
But it's not like one of those trap houses where you just go and like smoke weed and you guys are hanging out. It's like a trap house where like there's a full
Very big business.
Yes.
Yeah.
Big business. And there
That's
was
how I like my trap houses.
a legit trap
Yes.
house.
Yes. I need them focused on making money.
You know what? Make it a chain.
That's right.
So yeah, it was a full on lab. There's like no really regard. The guys making it. So the way they learned how to make it was basically they brought in chefs from China who didn't even speak Spanish or English. And they came in like on the cargo boats because Vancouver is also a port city. Hop off. They stayed with them like 6 months. And it's literally like, I'm not talking to you. You're not talking to me. Watch me cook. And then you're going to try a batch. We're going to put it out on the streets. If it works, goodbye. I'm back off and you guys keep it going. Which is also why I think, like, this is my personal opinion, is that there's some periods in time where the fentanyl, the drugs become so much more toxic than other times. It's because either like someone's learning or someone like fucks it up, because it's not like, you know, you're making your grandma's cookie recipe, like it's right in front of you. It's fucking fentanyl.
Yeah. Now, when you go in there, are you just like, hi, don't mind me? Or what's
Do you really picture me going in there? Hey guys.
Like, what do you do? Are you standing there like taking notes? Like what's are you just like standing there watching, asking questions?
Yeah. I kind of just talk to them as if like they're my pals, I guess. Like I'm just like, okay, and so then like how do you guys get that? And like, oh, how did he learn how to do that? Because I wouldn't know how to do that.
And they're not hesitant talking to you because they're told ahead of time, I guess.
Yeah, and also just because I think I go in there with the vibe of like, I'm not here to be like, like, what is going on? You know, I go in very much like, I know this is happening and you guys have already told me, so let's just keep it rolling.
How do they get it out of there? Because they're cooking it in Canada, but now they're putting it all over the United States.
Yeah, people drive it across the border.
Right across the Canadian-U.S. border.
Yeah, and there's like Canadian people who are doing it.
Oh, actual Canadians.
Yeah, like the mules are like, it'll be like a housewife. Well, not maybe like, yeah, just like a regular schmegular person who's getting a pretty good cut from it.
Have you talked to any sources that have done that?
No, and like the mules are the hard ones for me to talk to, I find, because those people are really just doing it for the money. And you know, you're crossing the border on a regular basis. You don't want to screw up your whatever rapport you've built with this XY border agent or the way that you do it.
Rapport you built with border agents?
It happens. There are people
you can control what border agent you go by. I'm really naive on this, obviously.
For sure. Yeah. Okay. There are people you have to understand too. Like Vancouver borders with Washington, right? So there are people who live in Vancouver and work across the border or vice versa. I literally worked with someone like that. So it's really common for people to constantly be crossing. And like then you'll kind of you get to know them. Or a lot of Canadians we can't order everything on Amazon or whatever to Canada. So like a lot of people have PO boxes over there. So there's people regularly crossing, and there's a lot of people that just generally look inconspicuous, and they're doing it for extra money. Now this is what I was told by the guys that I went with. And I asked, of course, I'm like, okay, well, put me in touch with a mule, right? But those people won't talk, and those people are Canadian.
Yeah.
And those people typically have a lot more to lose. It's like they're doing it because like they have kids or like they have something going on.
But they're taking fentanyl. Like that's what I'm saying. Like, okay, you have kids, you got to make money. There's a lot of ways to make money in this world. You're taking a drug that on air contact can kill other kids and is killing millions of people every year right now.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's right.
Yeah, no, I know you're not. It's
but
just,
I'm also not saying it's wrong.
mind.
I mean, because everyone, at the end of the day, a lot of people want to get rich, and they want to get rich quick, or they need money and they need it quick. And fast money usually isn't legal money. I mean, we see it all the time.
Yeah, but like I'm always strapped for cash around here. I don't go selling fucking coke at night. You know what I mean?
I know.
Like there is a, I mean, maybe I should. Like there is a right or wrong. I don't, because I'm like, why would I do that? You know, it's not even, you understand? Like it's not even a moral thought to me. I'm not in college anymore.
Yeah. I mean, I think sometimes you also have to like really put yourself in these people's shoes. And I'm not like defending or whatever, but there's a lot of people I met who like they were strapped and they really needed it, and they didn't really have the means to make it another way. And I'm not saying it's right, but I also like don't get into like a moral high ground about this.
I actually understand that.
There's a lot of people, it's like, yeah, I don't know what the fuck I would do in your position.
I don't know if you could do your job as effectively as you do if you didn't remove a significant amount of morality from what you do.
Yeah.
And that's in your defense. Like I think you kind of have to.
It's like like we were talking about Tijuana, right?
Off camera.
Off camera, yeah. Because they asked me, is Tijuana safe? And a side note from that is like, you go to Tijuana, there's a lot of working girls there, right? Like sex workers.
Yes.
And we all know like sex work, oldest profession, fast money, not easy money. I talk about this all the time.
Yeah.
Because so many people are like, that's fucking disgusting. I could never do that. Or like, how terrible. Well, first of all, a lot of them are trafficked. But second of all, you get to talking to some of them. Like if you really talk to them, like it's not just like, you want a drink? Come sit at my table, shake your ass. No. Yeah. It's like, what brought you here? How is it that you're younger than me? Like you're 20 years old. You have 2 kids in this small town in Michoacan. So you came here and you're sending your money back. And now you're doing meth because you have to keep a certain weight to work at these clubs. And because you have to stay awake all the time. And you're literally giving full service sex for like $100. That's crazy. And then there's people saying, when like those girls get murdered or those girls overdose, people saying, well, I mean, it's wrong. And, well, they should have known better. Like there was no possible way that they could have known better or perhaps done anything else, unfortunately.
Yeah. I think that's, I asked you about the mule one because it's so overt, like what you're driving across and what you're dumping.
Right.
But when it comes to, say the more, like you're talking about, more traditional where people will go for fast money for crime, I get it sometimes based on the environment. I do understand that. Like, let's call it what it is. I do understand the dude who well, now it's like pretty much legal, but the dude who sells like a lot of weed to put himself by, that's fine to me. Like I don't really care, but that's faster money, right? Mm-hmm. That's illegal in a lot of places still.
But like weed wasn't killing people the way
that's
fentanyl
right.
kills people.
That's exactly.
Sex work isn't killing people, and I understand
that's
that.
That's
right. But I think that at the end of the day, anyone who's willing to like risk their life to make money to do something illegal, especially if it's something that kind of scares them, it's like, what has brought you to this level of
Yes.
desperation? You know, and I can't judge that.
Yeah,
I've never been in
yeah.
that position, thankfully, and hopefully never will.
Yeah, my buddy Matt Cox, who's been on this show a bunch, he is reformed, but he was the greatest fraudster of all time
Yeah.
for about 6 years, including like a long run from the FBI. You know, the guy was a savant of a mortgage fraudster and identity thief. Ended up doing 13 and a half in prison. Content guy now, great dude. But, you know, he always talks about the threshold for crime.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, you know, everyone, including the most moral person you know, down to Mother Teresa, has a threshold for crime. He said,
God.
and he said,
Mother
what,
Teresa.
and he said, what I mean by that is, there is, you may be a mother and your infant's starving. You're gonna go steal some bread. He's like, I would even argue that's okay, right? But that's a crime. What he realized is that his threshold is really low. And I think that when it comes to the scale of crime you do, you know, and you got to take in all the factors here: environment, financial situation, economic. I mean, like the general economic situation in your environment around you, all that stuff. Like, there is a threshold there, and the person that is going to drive fentanyl across a border, their threshold to do crazy shit is lower than a person who maybe is really on hard times as a single mother and, you know, goes into sex work.
Mm-hmm.
It's a different level.
Mm-hmm. It is. But it's interesting that you bring that, you know, steal the bread for the starving kid thing, because I kind of see it all as the same, because it's like, well, fuck, you can only steal so much bread before you need to put the kid through school, before you need to, you know, have a
Right.
car to drive the kid to school, before you need to pay the electricity to keep the heat on. So you stealing bread is not gonna give you money, right? It's just gonna give you that bread. So then, oh, I can just make a trip across the border, carry this stuff, I never have to see it again. I go back, I get cash in my pocket. It's a done deal, right?
Yeah.
Are you thinking about all the hundreds of people that could possibly die from what your action
Yes.
just did, or are you thinking about the problem that's right in front of you
Yeah.
and your personal problem? And it's like what we were talking about. It's like people aren't even concerned with that global problem of like what's going on in Mexico, for example, because they're so hyper focused on what's going on within their own home.
And they don't have to see it. They're just a courier.
Yep.
So they get to be removed from it. There's
Like
something
they're
to be
not
said
even a
for that.
dealer. Like
Yeah.
dealers are seeing their clients die.
Yeah.
Dealers are seeing their clients deteriorate.
Yeah. I mean, that kind of reminds me, like, it wasn't fentanyl, but that reminds me of Luis a little bit too. Luis Navia.
Oh.
Because he, you know, we had this guy in here who, Luis Navia, was in the cartels for 25 years, and the last 15 to 20 of those years, he was like the guy globally for smuggling the drugs. He never sold it. He never had the guys on the street. That wasn't his job. His job was to get, as he would call it, product from point A to point B.
Yeah.
And I call him, like, he's a friend, really fascinating dude, but he's like the most amoral guy I've ever met in my life. It's not like, I think you kind of have to know him. I don't know how much people got from those podcasts, just seeing him on camera, but when you really talk with him, it's not like wrong, but it's not like right to him. It just is.
It just is.
It just is.
And I can understand how people view it like that.
I can too. It doesn't make it any easier for an emotional person like me to grapple with that though.
Totally.
And also, like, listen, I have the luxury of having not grown up in astute poverty, or whatever the term is, like total poverty.
Yeah.
You know, or where everyone around me is getting shot. And frankly, most of the people listening right now can say the same thing. So it's hard. Like, I always say this, when you use the phrase, if I were blank, then I would blank, that is a very dangerous thing to say because you don't fucking know.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you think, you might be 99% sure you would do this thing, but you're not 100. You don't know for sure until you're in that situation. It's facing you and you
100%.
react.
Yeah, and like so many people find themselves in situations where it's so completely out of their control. And also, like, I don't know if you've ever felt like this when you're just in a really high stress situation and you need to find the solution. Sometimes your brain, it just like it switches. Like it's not the regular you brain.
Yes.
Right? And you're going for that solution, and some people will kill for that fucking solution. It's just it kind of is how a lot of people operate. And if you are growing up seeing trappers and scammers and and they're balling out, why would you not do the same? I was actually literally just having this conversation of how so many guys who are kind of starting, like the juniors, like in the cartel, like they kind of want to get involved. It's not like how it was a decade ago even, where back then, like, we had this idea that, like, well, you grew up poor, you saw your older cousin trapping, so then you got in and he got you the connect, and now you're kind of in the cartel, or you're a lookout. Now it's like guys or people who actually grew up pretty privileged, they have money, but they like the idea of that, and like they listen to that music, they've seen those shows, and they want to get into that glamorized lifestyle, and it's changing, and that is very different than someone who's just like, I need that quick money, I need to find that solution.
Absolutely.
And that's like more like sociopath. Like those are people who like probably have disorders, because how are you willingly getting yourself into a situation where you could be responsible for deaths or violence when you don't even really need to be there in the fucking first place?
Yeah. When I was telling you before camera, I had the swim team in, the drivers in New York, and like they don't commit any other crimes rather than just driving fast, but they're driving fucking 160, 180 in the New York City area, and I will say they're extremely skilled. They're like the best drivers I've ever seen, but all it takes is one person making an innocent mistake on their end. Someone going 60 doesn't use a blinker, right? Very small mistake that usually wouldn't cause a problem, but they've decided to go 180, so they hit him and kill everybody.
Yeah.
And it's like and to their credit, they were answering the questions about this in here, but I'm like, do you understand why someone like me who doesn't do these things would look at that and say, you have to have some sort of screw loose? And they volunteered it. They're like, there's absolutely, I think Float was saying, like, there should be psychological studies done on this, because there is definitely something in our brains that's wired just a little differently that makes us do this. And what I would say is they're not full-blown sociopaths. I didn't get that.
Right.
But there's enough there of like that some level of narcissism gene that they're like, I can do it.
Yeah, it's some sort of personality disorder or something that's some chemical imbalance it reduces your regard for human life.
Absolutely.
And empathy generally.
How do, going back to the labs though, how do the Sinaloa guys who are all coming from Mexico, how do they recruit mules, Canadian mules? Like, do you know anything about that?
So what I gathered from speaking with them, it's basically just, these guys
Monster.com.
Oh my God. They actually just put it up on Craigslist.
Come on.
I'm fucking with you.
Okay. Fuck. You have a really good, like, I'm not fucking with you face. You really do. You
I don't think so. I feel like I'm like outwardly facetious about it, but
no. Maybe I'm still getting over being sick today, so I'm a little slower, but still, it's a pretty good face.
I think so. What I gathered is basically like these guys, they'll party and stuff like that, and like a lot of them have like Canadian girlfriends and stuff. So it'll be like knowing someone through someone. Right. Oh, and hey, my aunt, she needs money, and like, what can we do? Because I always see you have a ton of cash, and I always see you balling out at the club. So literally, that's how it starts. And then it's like, all right, I'll give her $5,000 if she does this. That's not a real number. I'm just like throwing that out there. Yeah. If she does this for me twice or whatever. Okay, great. And then, oh, you know what? So now this aunt is like, my neighbor, like, he's like down with like on money, and you know what, he's an alcoholic and he needs this and blah 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 blah. Like, it's, from what I gathered from what they were telling me, there usually seems to be kind of like a sob story behind it. Like it is someone who is just down on their luck or is having a hard time. And so that's, I think it's through connections, like the network They should like make a LinkedIn for these people.
Seriously, make the FBI's job easier. But you said that some of these, I think you call them cooks, right? You said they're bringing them in from Asia?
Yeah.
And they come in for like 6 months and they teach them?
Yeah.
I presume a lot of that's probably China?
Yeah, it's all China.
Yeah. So, did you ever hear the book Fentanyl Inc.
No.
by Ben Westhoff?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So, this guy, there was a Joe Rogan podcast with him about 5-6 years ago. I think it was 2019. Where he explained the story of how he came into reporting on all this. It was really quite amazing reporting he did. And so he was like a culture reporter, like a music reporter. So nothing to do with fentanyl. And something happened where he was assigned this feature story. He's working on it, totally about something else. And one of the sources he's talking with just offhand mentions about all the fentanyl. He's like, and he hadn't really heard much about it. He goes, oh, yeah, what's going on there? And the guy starts explaining it to him, and he's like, holy shit. And he keeps asking all these questions, and then he's like, oh, my God, like, this is a story. We got to do this. Long story short, it turns into this book, Fentanyl Inc. And this guy, who is obviously a savage, decides, you know what? No protection, no nothing. I'm going to fly over to Asia and see how easy it is to buy fentanyl. And he literally flew into China, went to, I don't know, one of the big labs or whatever, like companies doing this, and said, yeah, I'll take like 100 acre, whatever it is, you know, I'll take 1,000 pounds, whatever. And the guy's like, yeah. I told you, I'm feeling a little slow today. But like he's like
kilo, perhaps.
It's like, I'll take
100 acres of fentanyl.
I'll take a few kilos. And the guy's like, yeah, you want that in a package or you want me to mail it to you? And it's wild because they've now partnered, long since partnered, obviously, this is what you're reporting on, but like.
With the cartel.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's completely like localized the problem because now like the fentanyl doesn't come from China.
Yeah.
It's being made here.
Crazy. Yeah.
And it was crazy when Buddy was like literally telling me about, yeah, like we didn't understand. We didn't even talk. And he would like take his break, he'd go outside, smoke his cigarette, like eat whatever something he brought, and then he would go.
Wow. Yeah, some of the stuff that like Jorge is reporting on with the border, I'll put a pin on it, but like with the China,
I saw, and like the people coming in with the fancy clothes, right? They're coming in from China, they're crossing the Mexican border in Montclair and like,
yeah, it's crazy,
cozy,
very, very, and like the route the organization of getting them here is wild.
Yeah,
you know it's impossible to say where it's coming from, but it's also probable to say it's coming from the very top over there, and there's espionage linked to it. It's just very, very scary.
I would not doubt it at all. It's almost too obvious to be critical about it. Like it's just, you're telling me that like this cook is just coming in here and teaching people how to make this drug that kills thousands of people, and then he's like, all right, goodbye.
On his own accord.
And then never see him again. And then now no more fentanyl is coming from China, and it's all being made here, and it's all being dispersed through Canada and the United States.
It's the opium war back on us at this point. I mean, it's hard to deny that.
Way too many casualties.
Oh, yeah. Now, down in Mexico, not in Canada, but in Mexico, have you come across any like Chinese cartel presence?
No.
Do you think that's just because it's very well covered?
I think it's because if there is any sort of agenda with Chinese bringing this in, it's focused on the United States and Canada.
Yeah. Okay.
And the Mexican cartels, like they don't want fentanyl in the streets anymore. It was killing too many people. And for certain local factions, that makes them like kind of all their money. So they don't want those clients to die. There's actually like, when I was in Tijuana, there's this nurse and he goes around and he like provides like clean syringes and like medical care if like people have wounds and condoms and STD tests. And the cartel fully leaves him alone. Why? Because he is keeping their clientele alive and healthy. And like there were people I saw someone with literally like his whole skull was out. So like he had a wound. Like I don't know how he incurred it, but it grew like, and he would like pick at it, and his whole skull was out. Like even like around like his like brow bone, like the whole bone. And then he's shooting up with fucking puddle water, like from the dirty ground.
Oh God, it's worse than Kensington.
It's so bad.
It is.
And then like the dichotomy of like you see that, and then in Mexico like disappeared people is a huge problem. There's so many people who have disappeared.
Yeah.
It's like you just go and then there's like a wall of like 100 people. Have you seen me? And it's like men, women, young, old. And when we were down there reporting, actually there was this woman and she starts walking down the street. She comes walking down the street and she's wearing her jacket and it's like early in the morning. And you can tell she looks kind of nervous. She's kind of bundled up and she's looking around and she makes eye contact with me because obviously I look like an outsider there. And she comes up and she's like, hey, are you not, like, is it safe to be here? And I'm like, look, like, I'm okay and I've been here a bit, but like, what is your goal being down here? Like, what do you mean? Like, it was just so out of the blue. She just comes up to me, but she just seemed kind of scared. And she's like, it's because my brother is missing. So I thought I'd just come down here to look for him and look around. My daughter thinks that she may have saw him. So I just thought, I'd come look. Man, that shit it was so fucking sad.
Oh, it's heartbreaking.
Like, one thing is your brother gets murdered and you find the body and whatever, but you just don't know.
You don't know. You live in that unknown. I mean, we make, and righteously so, we make huge stories about some of those in America.
But it's like so specific who.
It's so specific who. Down there, it's like, you walk down the street, go like this and wait for the wind and people are going to walk out and they all have the same story.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, do we have any idea like what ballpark? I don't expect you to know this even if we do have an idea, but like what percentage of revenue fentanyl represents for the cartels these days on a broad basis? I mean, obviously it's significant.
I think fentanyl and cocaine, it's like it
That's the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because right now, like, okay, so there's like heroin doesn't exist anymore. And like that's done. Meth, yes, but like it's mostly people want fentanyl and benzos. And like that's the main thing. And obviously cocaine, there will always be a crazy appetite for cocaine. I'm surprised cocaine isn't legal. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy to me that it like we legalize weed but not coke. That's crazy. Like everyone does coke.
Because it could it's rare, but coke can kill you. That's the difference.
Yeah, but so can other prescription medications.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're right. You're right.
And if people are like, there's so many cocaine overdose. I've seen it in front of me all the time, and in different, in very different environments too, right? Like I've seen an overdose happen where it's like that typical, like on the street, someone is like injecting with this and this and this, and then it's like he's a goner. But then I've seen like like a after party, like at a club, at a nightclub.
Yeah. Yeah. And the other problem is like now people are getting coke laced with fentanyl and they don't know it.
Yes.
It's happening all the time.
Well, in that end of that reel, I literally said, if you've done coke in Canada, you've done fentanyl. And yeah. And I stand by that term.
I think it's that widespread.
It's so widespread. So there's drug testing, free drug testing in Canada available, and you can either mail in your drugs or you like walk in. And there's one that's run by the government, but it takes like 3 to 4 days to get your drugs back. There's a private one, and you go and they'll give it back to you in like 2 hours. They'll test it right there.
Your actual illegal drugs.
Yeah. Yes. That's how bad the overdose deaths are.
They just give it right back to you.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, like, for the government one, you'll just send like a sample. Right, you'll like mail it in.
Yeah.
So you're not like, hey, I'm gonna send you my baggie. Please, don't lose it or anything. And so,
that is a drug I'm so glad I never tried.
cocaine.
It looks awesome.
I've never tried cocaine because I know that I would probably love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It looks incredible. Never saw a dude on cocaine. I saw some dudes who took way too much, and I was like, okay, pipe down, obviously.
But if you're
never
like,
saw a dude who wasn't having a good time on that
right?
stuff. Yeah.
Like if you're like, I don't know, like 6 vodka sodas deep and you rail a line, those people look like they're living their best lives.
They do. They really do.
This is so gonna get demonetized. Oh my God.
We'll be bleeping out a lot on this one. It's all right.
I'm sorry.
But no, listen. It's usually me. So
Okay.
and it's been me today, so we're all good. And I know, like, for certain subject matters, like, we're gonna have to do more editing when it comes in. It's just how it works. But yeah, I mean, there's not really. It's not like they're putting balance sheets on what they're doing with the drugs, but it does seem to the layman. I'm glad to get it confirmed that those are like the two that they're focused on.
And so the problem is too, right? A lot of stuff now is also laced with benzos, and so we all know about like I don't know what we call it here, Narcan, naloxone.
Yes,
it's the same
Saves
thing.
You, yeah.
Yeah, that doesn't work with benzos. So if you have an overdose from benzo, you get in, like someone gives you Narcan, it's not going to work.
Why? Do
It
you
doesn't-
understand the science there? Because I don't. I have no idea.
From what I know, like the enzyme, it only counteracts like with like the opioid, like with fentanyl.
Got it.
It won't do it with the down. Like it's yeah.
Okay. So they're pushing a lot of benzos too.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And the thing is now with the drugs, and when I've talked to a lot of people from the streets or like people who work the street beat a lot, like ex-cops or whatever, they're like, people who are regular drug users are deteriorating at a way faster rate now than they were like 10, even like 7 years ago.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Like you'll see someone now, and we all see like the hunch, right?
Yep.
Like you're hunched over because it destroys your bones and like.
Yep.
So that wasn't really happening before. Like you didn't really see people hinged over like that, though at the rate that you do now, at least for what I've seen.
It's the potency of what they're taking.
It's too strong, and now also people are building, a lot of people that I spoke with, they have such a high tolerance. They're like, some people I spoke with were literally like, Katarina, I would love to go back to being a heroin user, but I can't. Like, it's fentanyl or nothing now. Imagine that. Like, imagine hearing that, like, you'd rather be able to be addicted to fentanyl. And like this one like gentleman I spoke with, he was like, you know, I was a weekend warrior. Like I would do really hard drugs on the weekends, but like during the week I would live my regular life. And I would drink, but I didn't do hard drugs, and I would do heroin. And then he's like, and then they introduced fentanyl. He's like, I do drugs all the time now. Like there's no such thing as weekend warrior. And I thought that was like a really interesting term that he used, because it's like, yeah, people at a certain point were able to like hide their addiction to really hard drugs, but now it's too strong.
It's too strong, and they get laced on it. There's some old podcasts on multiple big podcasts. I think Lex Friedman did one, Joe Rogan did one, and a few other guys with this dude, Dr. Carl Hart. And I will admit, to this day, I've never been able to get myself to listen to it. I have not. So I have to preface that with this. But he's a professor at Columbia. There's no doubt he's obviously like a brilliant guy. But his whole thing is that he takes a little bit of heroin like every day.
Mm-hmm.
And he tries to say it's been packaged all wrong. It's actually really good for you. Here's the benefits. And again, I've never heard him out. So maybe I'm really missing something there. But when I hear stuff like this, and then you look at every data point that's available to us through everything we're talking about today, and that I could talk about with a bunch of other people on a bunch of other topics where drugs gets tied into it and what it's done. It's like, what the fuck are we doing? Like that shit, there's a reason why it's like the devil's elixir or whatever the hell they call it. Like, you're not supposed to fucking take that. It's so simple. We just had Kurt Angle in here who, you know, broke his neck 5 times. Docs put him on painkillers. Couldn't get off them.
No, yeah.
You know?
And that's the case for a lot of people.
It's so sad, you know?
And another thing, too, is like a lot of people who are regular drug users and they're on the streets, a lot of them have CTE, like what the football players get.
Really?
Yeah, because they incur so many injuries over the course of the time that they're addicted, like not only from the drugs damaging their brain matter, but also because from falling over or getting into a fight, confrontation. And so then you already have an addictive personality, right? And you're already addicted. And then now you tie CTE into the mix.
Wow. I never thought about that.
It is called CTE, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
I'm like, then how do you ever expect to get off of that? But the thing is, like for the cartels, and then for like, okay, the top of whoever is teaching how to cook or whoever is profiting off of this, that's great news. It's like if you work at Nordstrom's selling Prada shoes and you find out that all your clients get their credit card limit increased. That's literally what that's like. There's a greater threshold of how much you're going to make now.
Yep. Shit gets morbid. I don't want to stay on that all day though, because it's just it's fucking brutal. But it's good to it's important to talk about. It's important to have people in here like you who have to see this up close all the time from both ends. By the way, you're seeing it from the people who are at the top supplying it, and you're seeing the people on the street who are getting addicted to it. And people, you talk about like the guy with his skeleton showing. Like we got to hear that stuff
for sure.
It drives it home. But El Mayo, we've been talking about him a bunch today, and obviously, like that's a huge, huge story that, this is right in your wheelhouse and in your world. So you had said that obviously this brilliant Sinaloa source, like that's pretty amazing, was telling you went back in April.
Yeah, in April.
That this was going to happen, and I believe this happened in the beginning of August.
End of August.
Okay.
Happened end of August, and then second week of September, or like September 7th, just shit hit the fan in Culiacan. That's when the faction war broke out.
Right. Okay. So for people at home, you've said a little bit about El Mayo today, but let's just like rehash here. Can you just explain who he is and what his style was and what cartel he ran, and then we'll get to what happened to him.
Yeah. So Ismael El Mayo Zambada was or is, I guess it's hard to say now, right? The head of one of the heads of the Sinaloa cartel. So when El Chapo got taken away, El Chapo and El Mayo, they ran the Sinaloa cartel together, and their styles are very different. We knew a lot for a long time about El Chapo, about his lifestyle, about Sean Penn and Kate del Castillo going there to make a documentary with him, and that he had beautiful houses and cars and haciendas, the whole 9 yards of what you picture this drug lord lifestyle. Whereas El Mayo was a lot more low key, and he was, from what I've never met the guy, but from what
Fuck yeah, I was just there last week.
But if you want to meet, link is in the bio. Anyways, he was more low key. He's a very like typical norteño, like northern, like Sinaloa man, like he was into his, the barbecues, the ranch, not ranch sauce, like a ranch, I know. A lot of cocaine.
I'm not that uncultured.
Sorry, but
Jesus
for
Christ.
other people, I don't want them to think, especially because you have a lot of Americans listening and you guys like a lot of ranch on shit.
Oh, that's what you think of us. Okay. It's all coming through now.
It's okay. Anyways, so he and El Chapo run that together. Now, El Chapo, obviously... Opposite, and he's out of the picture. So El Mayo became the head of the Sinaloa cartel, and so did El Chapo's sons, the Chapitos.
So they took over, just so I'm understanding, the sons took over what was El Chapo's faction.
Yes.
And El Mayo had his faction. So it's almost like it's a two-family system.
Exactly, right. And that's what it was, to my knowledge. That's what it was.
Okay. And
then the problem is, though, everyone wants a bigger piece of the pie. Like, it's never enough.
Yeah.
And so when El Chapo's sons started getting arrested, and there's like these manhunts for them, they get Ovidio, they go into his house, they destroy his house, they take everything of value in his house, right? Because that's that's what happens in Mexico, unfortunately. The military goes in to raid to get a guy, but then all of a sudden the Rolex watches are missing too, the shoes, even like the silk bed sheets, like everything is gone.
Listen, they deserve that. It's hard work.
No comment. No comment. That's a crazy thing to say.
I'm fucking with you.
Anyways, so that goes down, and then this year, Mayo gets captured. And what we're hearing, what I'm seeing, is that this was El Chapo's plan to have El Mayo kidnapped and arrested so that they could bargain and make a deal for his sons, at least, to be free, or his resentencing to be different. And we also have to keep in mind, like, despite all of this crazy shit that we hear about El Chapo and El Mayo, and, like, so many people involved very closely with these men are living freely and have a lot of leverage with even the American government. Like, a lot of deals are being made. I would love to be a fly on the wall in some of these rooms. Like, El Chapo's wife, Emma Coronel, she just walked like in Paris Fashion Week. And because she did her time. She was out.
I know.
And that, like, crazy, right?
I mean, she's hot. I don't know. Like,
yeah, but
they hired her.
Imagine being Kate Moss and you're like walking out and then it's like
It's
next
El Chapo's wife.
Like,
yeah.
that's crazy.
Yeah, there's some weird shit going on for sure.
So, anyways, there's a lot of rhetoric around how did this happen? How did El Mayo, a guy who played it really low key for the most part, end up on a plane, like on the tarmac even, and end up in the United States in a wheelchair in federal court? And now, why are El Chapo's sons, the juniors, being moved around like this? There's so
Like,
much
between prisons.
Yes,
Yeah.
and then discussing plea deals and a lot of the different details. And the thing is, I could speculate about this all day, but I really try not to. That exists all over Twitter and all over the internet,
yeah.
and from some really good sources actually who have a lot to say about this. But I try, because you never know. And as much as you think you have this source and that source, and you read this document and you know what's going on,
Right. You don't.
You don't know.
But you're saying that El Chapo orchestrated this from Florence Supermax prison in Colorado, meaning because you can't, there's no Sicarios going and visiting him there. Like, obviously, it's orchestrated completely 100% with some suit in the United States government sitting in his cell with him, and him saying, all right, if I delivered El Mayo, you're going to help me out with Ovidio and what's the other one? Cristiano or something?
Yeah, he has like 6 of them, and there's
whatever.
Ivan.
Yeah.
But, like, the thing is, I'm not exactly saying that it's like he's sitting there in his prison cell. No, because El Chapo has so many connections and so many people who continue to run his faction in Sinaloa, in the United States, outside of this, that they would know what he wanted. They would know, obviously, his agenda, and they were wanting to keep that going. So
even now, I mean, the guy's been in prison for 7-8 years or whatever.
yeah, but he created such a legacy within narco culture, obviously, and in the Sinaloa cartel, that people still, it's
some stuff you don't want to say.
yeah.
Okay.
Because here's the thing too. When I was in Sinaloa, a lot of people have critical things to say about both factions.
Yeah.
The thing is, it's hard to make a comment or make a criticism or make your opinion about what's going on with either the Maistas or the Chapitos, and someone not get pissed off. It's so hot there right now.
Yeah.
Like, anything, your last name could put a target on your back. The business that you run, who you have in the contacts on your phone, they're going for anyone and everyone because
all out war.
Yes, they want a complete takeover.
Each side.
Each side.
Yeah, okay.
Each side. And I've seen comments on Twitter of people being like, just let them kill each other between each other. But
it's not that simple.
It's not that simple. And
people get
especially
caught in the middle.
Now that the new generation cartel backs the Chapitos, like that's crazy.
So El Mayo, though, when he got caught, they tricked him. They thought he thought he was like going to a meeting.
Allegedly, yeah. So he was told that he was going to a meeting and they were gonna sort stuff out.
With who?
I don't know.
Like someone on the other side. Okay.
Yeah, it's whatever their bureaucracy is, and then he ends up with like a bag over his head, his hands and ankles tied. There's a photo of it, I think, actually, on a plane to the United States.
Yeah, can we get El Mayo bag on head plane? So
he put out a statement about it too.
It was like a private jet or something. Took him to Texas.
Mm-hmm. And he says in his statement that he was kidnapped.
Yeah. So.
But again, it's very hard to know. And there are people who say, and people close to this story who say, no, like he wasn't kidnapped. This is like they're using him as a pawn because he's aging and he could have been someone. Yeah, there we go. I can't even see.
Yeah, everything's like blurred out, but
yeah.
Yeah, that was we have the picture of him in the car right after they got him. See it on the far left, Alessi, with his actual face.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, that was when they like picked him up. Because he had a lot of work done and stuff too, so they weren't sure what he completely.
And because he was so under the radar, like it wasn't like every now and then when Chapo was out, like we'd get like this unicorn photo of him. We never really got that with Mayo. But as I was saying, there are other people who also say like this was him using himself as a pawn to start the war and to continue with their territory.
To go into U.S. prison for the rest of his, that's crazy.
There's a lot of different theories, and that's why I don't take one and run with it. I don't pick a side, and sometimes I don't even bother with them because for us to truly know, we'd have to be there. And there are some people who like to pretend that they know or like to say that they know something.
And they don't.
It's just so hard to know. And there's everyone, and so many people have an agenda when it comes to this because so many people are profiting off this cartel war. So you really never, like, for example, I did a story, I just posted this, how these leaflets were thrown out of a little plane that went over Culiacan. This happened twice over like the course of the past 2 months. These leaflets get thrown out and it says it's from Mayo's faction on the bottom, and it basically it has a hotline. So it says, if you are facing the wrath of like the Chapitos, call this hotline and we will come to protect you. We want to end this war. Yeah. We want to end this war and we want to make sure that there's peace and like unity here. And like we know you can't trust anyone, so trust us. Like we've come to save the day. That's basically, I'm paraphrasing, but that's basically what it said. Like a hotline is crazy, right? So like I tried calling this hotline and it's disconnected. Like it doesn't work. And then people were saying that it's like, oh my God, like the Mayo's faction has a hotline set up because they're trying to like catch whoever is on the other side of El Chapo, of the Chapos. But then I spoke to someone else who was like, this is the Chapos putting this out there so that they can see who's going to be willing to rat on their own people and call this hotline. But the hotline doesn't even work. And this is the second time that we've seen this hotline number been thrown out around the city on leaflets.
Absolutely absurd. Crazy that could be.
And some people also think it's like the government doing it. To see like who's involved, to see what's going on, who's gonna call.
Yeah, I'm sure the lead Sicario is calling that number. I mean, come on, guys. But when El Mayo got caught, you talk about these different theories, and I like your approach. I think you got to be careful with what you run with. But yes, he was a lower key guy. That said, he operated so freely for so long in Mexico, no problem, that when he got caught, and it was completely unexpected. People looked at the different government agencies that were a part of that raid on the ground.
You want to talk about the CIA?
Yeah,
link?
none of them. Obviously, they're from what we know, there's no CIA presence there or anything. And he was a long rumored guy to be potentially involved with CIA. Have you ever heard anything that links him to that?
Because his father inherited the business from a Cuban CIA asset.
What was that guy's name?
Nico.
How do we know that?
It's like public record.
Yeah, public record at this point.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he was like close to Fidel, and then he went. I think he went to Mexico from Cuba, and then met Mayo's dad. They started something, and then Mayo's dad.
So he defected from Fidel. You're saying like he liked him and then didn't like him.
I don't know exactly.
Okay.
And then I know Nico went to LA at some point, but Mayo's father basically, built that business and used that CIA link of Nico, however he used it, and taught his son, the Ismael El Mayo that we know, and his sister.
So it could be, could not, but there's history.
Yeah, that history exists.
Yeah. Have you come across that with other guys down there? You haven't come across any of it?
No. Yeah, no, but that's like murky waters,
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I got this guy that I've been talking with since like August who allegedly is going to come in here to do a podcast. We're like working on it. He's never in America, but long time CIA guy. Says he's out now. That's doubtful.
I'd love for you to ask him about this.
Oh, yeah. And the reason that he'll be incredibly good to ask about it is because he spent the better part of the first 20 years of his career as the deepest undercover spy for CIA in Mexico with the cartels. And I won't provide details yet. I'll let this guy provide details, but he was brought in there by, at the time, like the highest guys, like Platter brought in there. And that's why CIA saw that he had these connections innocently. Like he wasn't involved in drugs or anything, but he was a young dude. And they came to him and they said, "Yo, you have these connections. We want you to work for us." And he's like, "Doing what?" And they're like, "Spying." He's like, "No, I'm not giving up. I'm not giving up people I know." They're like, "Oh no, we don't want you to give them up. We want you to work with them." There's a huge intelligence opportunity here for national security matters. And he's like, "Sign me up." And that's what he did. And 50 years later, he's still doing it.
It would be so interesting to hear what he has to say about this because, of course, too, like, it says something that every major drug lord these days is being extradited to the United States. I mean, obviously, there was like a precedent that was set when like El Chapo like built his tunnel. It's like everyone's always escaping, it seems, in Mexico. But going to the United States to face, I understand it's crimes against Americans too, right? What they're being charged with, but that's crazy work, in my opinion.
It is. It's a whole different ball game, and because of everything that's going on that we've already talked about with the reverse drug wars and everything. You said it best earlier. It all spills over to here, so of course it feels really uncomfortable when you're talking about your own government agencies potentially being in the middle of this for some fucking important reason, and it's like, well, how important is it if we're killing millions of Americans as a result of the work that these guys are doing?
And what's crazy is because of, at least what I noticed when I was in Sinaloa, is because of how violent this has become since El Mayo's capture, the residents hate it. They are so fucking fed up. And of course there are still some people who are like, "Oh, but when this faction was in charge, it was fine," or it's these guys, or it's these guys. But for the most part, and I spoke to a lot of people, they're like, just end this shit.
Yeah.
Like, we don't want to have to deal with this whole turf war right now. And especially because now it's spilling over. It just like 2 days ago, in Mazatlan. And Mazatlan is a huge tourist destination in Mexico, and it generates a lot of money for the state. So a lot of the time when that violence spills into a tourist area, it's like what happened in Acapulco, right? Like it totally changed from what it used to be. And that devastates a lot of jobs, a lot of livelihoods, and a lot of lives.
Yeah, when you hear about it, like it does seem to be like a two separate worlds thing still. And when you look at a lot of these resort areas, it's kind of like off limits.
Yeah.
But when you hear about the aberrations sometimes where it does spill over, and you got your regular suburbia family coming down and there's 10 heads on a spike. I mean, stuff like that doesn't serve you well long term if you're trying to get people to come there, because these are the types of things that are going to do completely the opposite and get people scared.
Mm-hmm. And their economy is already suffering. I don't know if I brought this up, but
No, you haven't.
Their economy, and I'm not seeing a ton of reports on this, but I think it's so important because also when your economy suffers, then what do people need? They need money, right? So then what do people go towards? Like it's just a vicious life cycle. But their economy is so bad because everything closes early. And Culiacan is a city with like a very vibrant nightlife. I wrote about this. And banda, like the type of music, is super popular there. Like popular across Mexico, but like that's like Sinaloa. Like you have like La Banda Sinaloense, like all that. Tierra Sagrada. And so these bandas are playing on the side of the street for money because everything is closed. Like they have no work. And the incredible thing, so I stopped to talk to a lot of these guys. I want to post it up. They're like, we're not making nearly as much as we made when we were playing, but people are so supportive. Like when there's a red light, they're like playing through the cars, and then as soon as the light turns green, they're like stuck in between the cars and the lanes. But people are rolling down their windows and people are supporting because they know like this is a pillar of our culture and of our economy, and it's dying. And the crazy thing too is like a lot of these narcos have songs dedicated. They have the corridos dedicated to them. And it's affecting these very people.
Yeah.
It's like the one guy, he's like, we would make like 2,500 pesos in a day. Now I'm lucky if I walk home with 400 pesos. That's like that's like $20.
Yeah.
Imagine in a day.
Yeah, in a day.
That's not even a meal here.
And, you talk about like the spillover, obviously like there's a huge border crisis going on right now, and it emanates from the U.S.-Mexico border. And, it's a humanitarian crisis. We talked about it a bunch in here with different guests, be it Rocco Vargas, Jorge Ventura, Nick Shirley, like, they all tell a lot of the same types of stories, which is that, the results of not having our border strong has so many people coming, and it's creating a giant business for the cartels. And it's created massive, obviously it's a human trafficking business, but it's also created massive tragedy to go along with that, where, I think maybe it was Rocco told a story. No, it was Jorge told a story in like the third hour of when we were talking in episode 229, where he's like, it was like the first hour where he was like, I saw this. What was it, Alessi? It was like a frozen truck where you go inside and there were just bodies.
Oh, like a deep freezer?
Like out of Goodfellas almost. Yeah. He's like, I saw this with men, women, and children.
Yeah.
Who had been trafficked across the border, and then I don't remember what it was, killed before they were put in there, whatever it was. It's horrible to hear about, and the cartels at the dead center of it.
Yeah, exactly. Anyone who's crossing the border illegally is paying a fee to a coyote who's part of the cartel, and that's taking them across. And along those routes, like there's just human remains everywhere. There's bones everywhere. Like we could probably go take a walk tomorrow and just like, sift through, and we would find bones for sure. So many people die there, and then so many people don't hear about what happened to them, right? And like, if you're crossing, I know we all know this, but you get caught by like Border Patrol, okay, get your ass on back by. Like there goes all that money that you saved to get across. try again. Or worst case scenario, you die. And it's all cartel.
And they've been in that business for a long time now.
Forever. Yeah. That's like drugs and immigration or the illegal crossing it's their bread and butter.
How do you fix this?
That's not my job.
I know it's not your job, but I'm just like,
I wish I knew.
World, waved a wand.
I wish I knew. I don't know. There's always an appetite for cocaine. There's always going to be border policy that doesn't allow certain people or makes it harder for certain people to get to where they want to be. There's always going to be an appetite for sex. Like, I don't know. And it's insatiable. So...
But you have a country where the government and the cartel, it's not a blurred line, it's the same line.
Yeah.
How do you undo that? Like, crime is always going to exist. Bad things are always going to exist. But how do you remove
corruption?
The full cancer cell that has infested the Constitution of Mexico?
I don't know, and I would love to say that it's like, okay, you bring someone in who's not going to be corrupt, who has their, they're a politician who in an ideal world they have, their morals in the right spot. But is that even the person that people are going to vote for?
Probably not.
Right?
It's the person with the most, who can drive the most emotion out of you, regardless of how they do it.
It's like such a multifold problem. Like there's just, I don't know. And I mean, I'm seeing it and I'm like, I wish there was. But I think it's, again, and this sucks to say, I feel like it's going to get worse before it gets better. Because
you're right.
Especially right now, seeing the level of violence and what we're seeing like with the border, it's like this is a catalyst for something so much worse in future generations. Seeing constant violence, and having it so accessible to freely cross the border illegally, it's like, ooh.
It's bad.
Yeah. I don't think it's going in a direction to make this go away.
So you're here in America now for what, like a couple weeks? Something like that?
Mm-hmm.
How often do you come back to America or Canada?
It's very rare that I go back to Canada. I go only like when I need to. But America, like every few weeks or every few months, I guess, I come here.
Okay.
There's like a lot of good stuff because I want to do more like long-term work. So I'd love to do like a TV series or like something that really dives deep into the guts of what we're seeing happening.
Do you worry about the repercussions of something like that though? If you really went far, because you're early right now.
Mm-hmm.
Like you've been doing this for 2 years, and now hopefully through this, like, you're really gonna grow. But you worry about the blowback from that?
I think it depends how I do it. So like if I have a team behind me, I like to tell myself that I'd probably be okay, or at least sometimes I think before something really bad happens or something really bad were to happen, I would know. Like I would sense it. And I think that's why like a lot of journalists live in exile or they know when to go somewhere else to cool down. I think I would probably get a warning. And if that's the case, okay, we see how I deal with that when I cross that bridge.
Mm-hmm.
But if something just happens, I mean, that's the nature of the work, and I just have to accept the risk associated with it.
Yeah, you do seem to. That comes across talking with you on and off camera.
There are certain things that I will stray away from just because it's putting like unnecessary attention on me.
Like what kinds of things?
Like talking about certain things about the cartel. And I don't think it's actually, they're not things that I need to necessarily talk about in order to get the message or the story across. But for the most part, I think I'm going to be okay. And if not, well, maybe that means I did a good job. Sorry.
God damn.
Is that crazy?
Yeah, well, look, you got passion for it. That's for sure. But what
No shortage.
what stories are you working on right now? Can you talk about that at all?
Yeah, so actually, my girlfriend, my really good friend, she's a journalist too in LA, Carmen Marquez. Her and I are working on a series about women in organized crime, because it just so happened that I managed. So I really wanted to focus on women doing bad things, because a lot of the time when we think of like people who are doing heinous crimes, we think of men.
Yeah, you sexist women.
Please, it's just the truth, okay? Stats don't lie. Don't worry, guys. Like, I'm not a man hater. Like,
Okay.
I love my father and my brother. Like, it's great.
Okay.
I've got a lot of boyfriends. Kidding. So no, the thing is, I really wanted to focus on this because I also secured some sources south of the border, but like along the border, who are doing some really heinous crimes. There's
women.
Yeah. There's one woman who I spoke to who is trafficking young women from Argentina, Venezuela, bringing them to Mexico to work as prostitutes. Like, she puts them up in like a place and she's basically pimping them out along the border.
Whoa.
And she's willing to talk. And then there's this other woman who is chopping up bodies for the cartel. Yeah.
Chopping them up.
Mm-hmm.
How'd you get her as a source?
Because I met her and we started talking, and it just so happened that.
How'd you meet? You go to the bar, like get a drink? Oh, so what do you do?
No, it was like in a nefarious environment. Okay. So yeah, and it was just, it just so happened that it came out. But sometimes.
So she just said, like, I chop up bodies for the
We
cartel.
got to talking, and then she showed me. And yeah. I went to this like area on my own, whatever. I started talking to people, and then she's like, yeah, look, I do this. And I was like, that's crazy. But the thing is, and I would love to do a series on this, women doing this organized crime, doing these like really dark things. And it's not for a wow factor. It's because, look, this is happening. And interestingly enough, is a lot of these women that I've spoken to, who I would love to have part of the series, were victims once themselves. And then they got into this position of power and they're profiting off of it. And I think that life cycle is really interesting. I think it's a really important story to tell. And I think that a lot of people would be interested to hear it. And I think it would be important.
I agree.
Because sometimes when I talk about things like this, some people are like, you just want like that crazy wow factor. It's all sensationalism. And no, it's not. Me talking to someone who's doing bad things isn't giving this bad person a platform to, spew whatever they want. Of course not, because I'm a journalist and I'll always be critical and I'll always tell every side of the story and try to, I will never leave a stone unturned when it comes to this, to the best of my ability.
I believe you. It comes across.
So, and I think it's interesting, point blank. It's like, how can a woman who was trafficked as like a teenager and had to work, have sex for money, now do the same thing? And she's like stone cold. But she wasn't like that before. So that's something I would really like to tell those stories. And I do feel like it's going to be really split. There's going to be 50% of people who are like, wow, this is great journalism and this is a really interesting story. This is horrible. And I think there's going to be another group of people who are going to be like, why the fuck would someone ever talk to this person or give them a platform or tell this story? Like, this is not a story to be told.
I don't think it'll be 50-50. I think you'll have a much more the former there. Because, look, you're always going to have people who bitch and moan, who want things their way or whatever. But, like, so you want to just ignore problems?
That's the thing.
Like
the
this
tragedy
is your
will
job.
always exist.
Yes.
And I would love to, there's a such thing as solutions-based journalism, where when you're telling a certain story, especially when it's a tragedy, you're kind of telling the story in a way that's leading up to how can we fix this, or how can we better implement certain solutions we already have. And that is something for this that I would like to consider, because you even asked me yourself, you're like, so how do we fix this? And I think that's why people are so interested in these kinds of stories that are harrowing, because we just want to know, like, okay, how do we get rid of it, or how do we make it better? And there is no simple fucking solution. And it's not like all right, let me lay it out for you from A to C. But there are some ways that we can mitigate just how tragic it is.
Yeah, my buddy Tommy G has a great quote I say all the time now because I love it. He's like, you can't boil the ocean, but you can boil your pot.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You can take care of your piece and try to leave something a little bit better than when you found it. And I think when people are doing very brave reporting, like you are, there's not a lot of people doing it for obvious reasons. Like it's not only impressive, but it makes it even more important because you're telling these stories that otherwise wouldn't be heard. And then, you're nice enough to come here and share it with all the people out there listening, which is great. And I hope that type of thing doesn't put you in danger. But as you said, like, that's kind of the nature of the beast you're in. Like there's always potentially danger somewhere. So I hope you stay safe out there. I hope you keep telling these stories. And I also hope that if those inklings came in, like you talked about a few minutes ago, like shit, we're going to hit the fan, that you actually do follow through and get the fuck out of there. Because there will be, when you do it, as you've already demonstrated you've done it, you've set an example, and there will be other people to come do it. It's when people don't try it at all, and then no one does it, then no one's, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like no one's going to do it. So like you've already accomplished the job, and hopefully you get to do it for a while longer, but just, be careful out there.
I'll be wary of the expiration date.
Unless he's like, God damn. On that note, Kat, thanks so much for sharing everything today and getting in here last minute. I appreciate all your patience.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. And we will have the links to your Substack down below, as well as your Instagram and Twitter. Anything else?
Beautiful. That's all you need.
All right, let's go. Everybody else, you know what it is. Give it a thought. Get back to me. Peace.
Thank you guys for watching the episode. Before you leave, please be sure to hit that subscribe button and smash that like button on the video. It's a huge help. And also, if you're over on Instagram, be sure to follow the show at Julian Dorey Podcast, or also on my personal page at Julian D. Dorey. Both links are in the description below. Finally, if you'd like to catch up on our latest episodes, use the Julian Dorey Podcast playlist link in the description below. Thank you.